I called him as
I
soon
wonder
as
if
I
he's
saw
here
it.
for the mountain bike.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure.
And I said, you know, this is an insult to me.
Okay,
I
he's got
understand
that on here,
the
like,
village committee
Yep, we're good to go.
all right, let me,
on the
I need my agenda here, hold on.
least part of your meeting. Why would you do this and go to the board of selectmen and say that you've come and we're not responsive?
All right,
But that's insulting. Well, he said you didn't have a meeting just for us. I said, no, because you came to every meeting.
are we all set to begin, ladies? We good? Okay. Yeah.
Eli, did you just join?
How's it going? We're going to start the meeting in a bit. So if you want to go on mute until it's your time to talk or until we have public comment, that'd be appreciated.
Got it.
Okay. All right, so let's get started. Good evening, everyone. I will start tonight's Mashpee Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, June 26, 2025. We are meeting in the Wacoit Meeting Room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North. Our meeting is broadcast live on local cable channels 8 and 1072. We are also streaming live on the Town of Mashpee website, and tonight's meeting is a hybrid remote Zoom meeting as well, with the ID and passcode information clearly printed on the agenda. Before we do begin, if you would like to join me in a pledge of allegiance, please do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Okay, thank you. Before we start, I'll take a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. As always, I will begin with the public comment for any issues that are not related to agenda items that are posted for this meeting. So if you would like to speak directly with the commission, this would be the time for that. Again, items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone here at the meeting that would like to address us? No? Anyone online? We're good with that? Okay. Looking at our pre- and post-hearing agenda items for discussion, I will start tonight with 110 Popponesset Island Road. I've got on my agenda Attorney Jerry Carter, and this is for the discussion on the enforcement order. And before we begin, I will remind all of the commissioners that as this enforcement order is currently under litigation in Barnstable Superior Court, there will be no engagement or deliberation by commissioners on this matter. Statements and materials provided to the commission during this agenda item will be presented for informational purposes only. And with that, gentlemen, if I may have your names for the record, we can begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeremy Carter, attorney representing Donna and Eli Florence, who are the homeowners. With me is Eli Florence. Go ahead.
Eli Florence.
And on Zoom is Matt Swashberg, who is a environmental expert that Mr. Florence has engaged and has been conversing with Andrew from time to time. So that's who's on Zoom.
Very good. Thank you. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. So this was a request. This has been a long tortured matter since 2019 with COVID interjecting the matter. Various town council have been involved. not for any particular reason, they've either left the office or not. It's always been the goal, once it got to court, to try to come back and resolve it. Nobody's trying to push anything through. I can't speak for why it hasn't resolved, to be honest with you. We had a site visit, your agent, myself, town council, went out in the summer of 2023. A plan to mitigate, to rectify was submitted, I think, in December of 2023. Was rejected by the agent. We didn't get any feedback as to why it was rejected. We went back to the drawing board and did a comprehensive plan that was sent in June of 2024. It is my guess that for some reason it got lost in the shuffle, because I think when I sent it to Andrew the other day, he didn't think that he had seen it. He was going to send it to your board to look at again. Look, I've been involved in this town. Mr. Florence wants to be a good owner. He wants to try to resolve it. It's frustrating putting the cards on the table when he looks to the right and to the left of his neighbors who have grass and have this and have that, which is what he has, and then he's being told he's got to remove it. And he understands why, so I'm not trying to be difficult. My only point of saying that is, when he does mitigate, it's going to be back to the natural state that are different from his neighbors on his right and his left. And for whatever reason, I think Andrew spelled it out, they're either grandfathered, or they have this, or they have that. We're not here to argue that anyway. What we're here to do is try to have your board come back to us with some kind of a compromise that will work to resolve this case. Matt is much, I'm an attorney. I'm not conservation, I don't know vegetation, except poison ivy, which I'm highly allergic to, from any other vegetation. Matt has proposed, and he could maybe orally, very briefly, give you what he proposes as mitigation, if the board would allow him to speak.
Absolutely.
Matt?
Yeah, I heard that. We've gone back and forth a few times here, and I think we proposed removing some of the grass or sod that's in the area, and in an attempt to resolve this matter. And for the most part, all we've gotten from Drew McManus is not good enough, try again. And that has not worked at all. It's not constructive. So we're at a loss for what next to do. Looking for some movement on the part of the commission, and haven't gotten any so far.
Matt, can you just comment a little on the plantings you proposed and maybe a little about your background?
Well, my background, I'm a wetland ecologist and a wildlife biologist, both of those things. I've been at this now for 40 some odd years. And let me think, what was your other question? I'm sorry.
The plantings you
Oh,
proposed.
the plantings, yes. We proposed some plantings in the area where the grass or sod is removed. And off the top of my head, I don't have that right in front of me, but I know some of it was shrubs, wetland shrubs, and we haven't seen any kind of response, specific response from the commission about whether that's appropriate in their opinion, or what they'd like to see. So again, we're kind of we just, well, I quit trying when I didn't get a response from the commission. And now we're simply at a roadblock here, waiting to hear, if anything, from the commission as to what it wants to see. Besides, the one thing we've heard from them is take out all of the grass and the sod and restore this area to what it was. But we haven't seen any specifics again and what they mean, and so we're at a loss.
So if I could just sum up, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you have from Andrew the June 2024 letter with the
Yes, I do.
pictures. So Mr. Florence is willing to remove the swing set completely, revegetate. He's willing to remove some of the grass on the, if I'm looking at the picture directly, on the left of the sandy area, if I'm doing that right. And, you know, revegetate, and I think the revegetation is proposed in the June 2024 letter. Again, I don't profess to be an expert in this area. I did realize that sand, which was the base of that dune, is still there. Mr. Florence intends to keep the sand there. Grass is considered fill too, but if the board wants him to remove some of the grass as he proposes, he's fine, and he'll plant whatever the board wants him to plant as long as it isn't poison ivy. The bushes and everything that was taken out was poison ivy. He has lots of children and grandchildren. It resulted in ticks, and his wife went to the hospital because of poison ivy. So was he wrong in removing that? Well, obviously, after 5 years of litigation and everything else, he is trying to make good. So he wants some help from the commission to see what he can do to make it right.
And safe.
Okay?
Is that it? Is there anything more Matt would like to offer, or?
Yeah, let me just add, I and Eli have proposed a number of things over the couple of years now, about how best to resolve this, removing the fill, the grass and some of the sand, and plantings. There's a list of plantings that I had submitted. I don't have those in front of me, but I can recall some of that. Wetland shrubs and that kind of thing. And we really haven't gotten any kind of constructive response from the commission. So again, we're kind of at a loss here for where to go with this, and waiting for some fairly specific response from the commission itself. I'm done.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the
Before you
time.
leave, for both your information and for commissioners as well, we will take all of the information that you have given us tonight. We'll put that together individually. Commissioners, I ask you to send whatever questions, comments, concerns that you have based on the administrative record that we all have and based on what we've heard tonight. Send that individually to the conservation agents, both Dan and Drew. They'll collate all of that. It will be given to our town council, and town council will provide the feedback to you based on what we've heard tonight.
Great. Thank you
Okay.
very much. That's all we
You're
can
welcome.
ask.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a procedural question?
Sure.
Was it town council that has advised the commissioners not to interface or ask questions or verbalize anything?
I'm not aware of that. I just, as chairman, I know that this is under litigation, so I don't want any deliberation by commissioners in open session.
On any of it?
No. Okay?
Okay.
Anything else? Then we're good. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, let me get that file out of my screen here. So I'm going to go to our hearings, and a practice that we've done is look at RDAs first to get those completed, because hopefully they're a little bit easier than the NOIs. So I'll go to 3 Elliott Road, Aris Pappas. This is a proposed fence with grass installation and hardscape reconstruction. The representative is Cape and Islands Engineering, and if we can have your name for the record, we can get started with your presentation.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Jake Fricke. I'm a professional land surveyor with Cape and Islands Engineering, representing Mr. Pappas for this project on Elliott Road. This is a property which is located within land subject to coastal storm flowage. It's in the AE 12. The property has been before you twice in the last couple of years. First for a septic upgrade, which was approved in 2023, and then again for a deck and porch addition, which was approved in March of 2024. The septic has been installed, and the deck and porch project is mostly complete at this time. The application before you tonight is a request for determination of applicability to construct a 6-foot privacy fence around the backyard portion of the house to provide some separation from the abutting lots and from Shore Drive on the westerly side. The fence is shown as a revision to the deck and porch plan, which was submitted and approved by Conservation in 2024. In addition, this plan now shows the reconstruction of a previously existing patio, which was removed in January of 2024 at the time of the installation of the septic system. The former patio is shown in the approved septic plan, which was revised through June 16th of 2023 and was noted as to be removed and relocated as needed. Confirmed with the client that the replacement of the patio is to be set in crushed stone, which will provide a permeable base. We feel this application meets the performance standards and request you make a negative determination under the state and local bylaw.
Okay, thank you very much. I will go to the commissioners first for questions or comments that you have on this request.
Are there agent comments prior to?
We do have
I just want to
for
know
us
before I go
all.
into.
Did you get the all comments list, Marjorie?
Yeah, you know what? They're organized differently now.
Yeah, well, ththey're on there. There's 3 or 4 different bulleted facts that the agents have
That's on
provided.
the original.
Inside of the cover,
What's that?
inside of the cover.
That wasn't a negative comment, Dan. It
No,
was
that was
just
good.
that it's different these days. It's organized in a different fashion. This one?
So, quick question.
We'll see.
So the RDA request is just for the fence and the mitigation planting and the patio?
The request is for the fence and the patio. The planting shown was already approved on the 2024 plan, which went with the deck and the front porch. This is just a revision to that plan.
Okay, are those plantings in place?
They are not.
Okay. So, what's the reason why they weren't in place?
Here,
Because the project is not yet complete.
Okay, I mean the construction project?
That's correct. He's still working on the area.
Oh, it looked pretty complete to me when I went by. Everything was landscaped across the front. The whole house was tight to weather, so. Why would you want us to provide a negative determination if you haven't closed out the previous, was that order of conditions? Was that an order of conditions plan?
That was also an RDA.
That was also an RDA, okay. So we should probably get the first RDA closed out before you put in, approve the second RDA.
My understanding is that these can run concurrently. It's a separate project. We're just installing a fence.
There would be no certificate of compliance on an RDA,
Right, but,
so there's what would,
So when was the first IDA granted? 2 years ago?
I believe, is a couple of years
23.
back.
Yeah, I want to say it was 23.
Yeah.
Off the
Okay.
top of my head, yeah.
And we can't just amend it, because there's no process to like amend an order of conditions, because there's no,
Right.
so, I mean, I get why they came for another one, at least they didn't just put up the fence and hope no one noticed.
Right, right. Yeah, just saying, okay, what's the timeline
Right.
for this? So you're going to complete both RDAs, both projects at the same time?
Yes, that's my understanding, and I would expect that as part of the installation of the fence, which would be sort of the completion of the landscaping, that he would also be installing the plantings as required.
Okay. So looking at the plan, that the fence is going right through the middle of the plantings. So how would the fence impact the plantings? Because it looks like, you have plantings on both sides of the fence. What are the plantings proposed there? It says, shrubs previously removed will be replanted, and then proposed native plantings. So.
That's correct. And that was all part of the approval for the porch and deck. It was for construction access.
So you're gonna try to put a fence in and plant on both sides of the fence?
That would be my recommendation, yeah, rather than trying to install the plants and then install the fence. I would install the fence first. To minimize the impact, you don't want to plant plants and then stomp all over them.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
All set. Anyone else?
I've got a question.
Sarah, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good evening, and forgive me if this is a silly question, not having the opportunity to go and take a look at this property before the hearing. I'm just looking online and looking at the plan. Is it going to be flush to the ground, or is there going to be a gap? I think one of the things that I would get concerned about in the floodplain would just be channelizing water if we're adding vertical surfaces. So is there a way to have a gap to let the water
I can't speak to exactly how low the fence would be. I expect that this fence is for a combination of privacy as well as retaining animals and small children. So, we're not in a coastal A zone. There's no prohibition against vertical surfaces in this flood zone.
Sure. I still would be concerned about water flow, and I actually have small children, and all the childproofing standards are 4 inches. So I can't speak to small animals as definitively, but I wonder if we would want to consider, and I see that the agent's comments here, just for the other commissioners, it seems that we would want the narrative for this RDA to include the full scope of work, not just adding the fence. So I don't know if that's something we as a commission want to deliberate, or if this additional piece would warrant maybe a full-blown permit. Cumulative impact would be my concern.
Okay. Is that it, Sarah?
That's it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
I mean,
Shauna?
there is a fair amount of wildlife that goes through the Pompanesett, rabbits, foxes, lots of stuff, so I think we do need the gap underneath to make sure that the creatures can keep going the way they've always gone.
We typically do condition a space for wildlife travel. So if this does, if it garners a negative determination, we could condition that as well. Other questions?
Yeah, the hardscaping on the deck, what kind of material is it?
The deck itself?
Yeah, that you're reconstructing or?
Oh, the patio.
Yeah.
It's a pavers. It's like the concrete variable size pavers. There was a patio with a fire pit that was kind of in the middle of where the leaching field is now. And they lifted all those stones, stacked them up over by the shed, and now they're just being moved back into place and reconstructed. I have a photo of the original fire pit if you'd care to see it.
So you're just using the existing material that was there?
Yep.
I have a question, and it may be more for us, is if Drew's saying that the full scope of proposed activities is not in the RDA, are the other activities in the previous RDA? So he's saying the front porch and expanded deck. It's my understanding that there is a permit for that.
If there is a one.
RDA, I think.
There's a permit for that
Yeah,
in place.
the past RDA was the shifting of the shed, the mitigation, and the front porch.
So then,
And the back porch, or deck.
Right, yeah, in the back deck.
why would we need this narrative to cover that full scope? If that's already been permitted and that's already in, the full scope of that is in a permit. I'm usually not arguing for people to do less, but I'm curious what our motive. As long as it references the previous RDA, one can pull it and see what the whole picture is. And the plan, when I read the RDA, it references the plan and the additions previously permitted. So I'm not so concerned about that. I do think the fence probably should have a gap at the bottom to allow for either water, animals, whatever. And I also understand being mid-project and realizing you want privacy from your neighbors. So I would love a fence at my house. So I don't think this needs to be that hard.
Other questions or comments from commissioners?
What was the answer to that,
Yes,
to Drew's comment?
it is in a previous RDA. Everything that's been explained has been.
Oh, I wish
asked
you were
for.
here, because I wonder why he even put it in here.
Well, Dan's here, he can address
Oh,
this when
Dan, there
we...
you are.
Yeah. I think Drew put it in there because on the plan of record, it says proposed porch, and things of that nature, because you're using the past plan and just adding to it. So I think that's why when he looked at it, he wanted to make sure the description of the narrative was matching the plan. But as Alex said, since it has been covered in the past RDA, the paper, essentially the paperwork's already there, the approvals are there, so. And
And
Drew was
moving the
online.
patio was in the previous RDA?
rebuilding of it was in was it the previous RDA? Because,
It was in the first RDA for the septic, because they had to nuke the area right where the patio was in order to install the septic system.
yeah, this septic system was brand new. I believe it was an upgrade.
It was,
At the time, so yeah.
Looks like Drew's online.
Yeah, I'm on.
There he is.
I'm online, guys. Sorry for the delay. I had some Wi-Fi issues, but to comment on this, that was my mistake. I had looked at the plan. I didn't recall that it had, at the moment, previously been through those aspects, the deck and the front porch. So now having heard that it was covered under the previous RDA, that kind of renders my comments in that regard moot. So you can disregard those comments, those aspects, if they were covered under a previous RDA. I just didn't realize at the time when I was creating the comments.
Well, you got me all upset for nothing.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Drew. So for clarification, we're looking at the fence and the extension of the patio. Those are the two.
I think just the fence.
Just the fence, right?
It's the fence, because the patio was included in a previous RDA.
Oh, I thought
but
you were
we're just
extending.
We're just showing it. No, it's the exact same number of stones that are just being moved back into the lawn.
Okay, that's my misunderstanding, because I see it over the chambers on the septic, so I didn't think that that was proposed in the first one.
It was not, its new location was not shown in the original plan. It was just shown as to be relocated as necessary. And I have a copy of that plan here if you're interested in seeing that.
Any other questions? On the fence itself, let me ask, I'm looking at the plan and I can see where it's labeled, but I'm wondering, does that fence also make the bend at the bottom of this plan and go along the other side, or is it's not? It's not going where those abrevieties are?
Down at the bottom, it does make it to the property line on both the east and west sides. There's a small section of fence that attaches to the corner of the shed, which goes down to the property line, and then there is another course which runs down along the property line, the easterly property line, down And there is, the abutters fence is in that vicinity, and I expect that they will work with the neighbor in order to close that off.
Okay. All right.
But that's not.
Okay. Any other comments, Dan? I know you got kind of cut off there. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Nope, nothing for me.
Okay, let me go out to the public. If there's any questions or concerns from members here or online, we don't have anybody?
No one online, it's true.
Okay. I would accept a motion then.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for a negative determination with the following condition, that all mitigation plantings to be installed within 30 days of the fence being installed, and that the agents be notified. So,
30 days.
Steve, the gap
We
on
had
the
the
bottom.
gap.
Yeah,
in a 6-inch gap at the bottom of the fence.
so 6-inch space for
6-inch
wildlife
space,
travel.
yeah. I think that's what we've done before in
Yeah.
the past, yeah. Take care of that, yeah, so the animals can flow. Yep.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. So we have 1 on Steve, 2 on Sandy. Further discussion or deliberation by commissioners only on the motion that we have on the table? Nothing? We're good? All right, then I'll take a roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You as well.
You too.
All right. Let me Our next hearing is for 45 Manitoba Road. This is Josephine Foster T.R. This is a proposed addition over an existing deck. Remove and rebuild the deck in the existing footprint and an addition to the back of the dwelling. The representative is Flaherty Environmental Services, and I believe we just got a DEP number on this afternoon. I've got the 4.3, but I don't have
3349 is the last four.
4.33349.
Yep.
Okay. So,
I'm going to recuse myself because the Vukovich are my clients.
okay, so Steve is not participating in this. Sure. Okay, so we have six voting commissioners at the table. Good evening, sir. If I can have your name for the record, we can get
Yes,
started.
thank you, Mr. Chair, members, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. My name is David Flaherty, and I'm working for the owner at 45 Manitoba Road. This is 2 small additions in the flood zone. Oh, before I get going any further, I'd like to thank the staff for a great amount of assistance on this project. Thank you. While no wetland resource areas are within 100 feet of the property lies mostly within the FEMA flood zone AE elevation 11. A new 240 square foot addition of it is proposed on the southeast side of the existing dwelling. Originally, frost walls were thought about, but the owner has since said that he'd like to have both additions with pilings to be constructed using best management practices. All roof runoff for the additions will be collected into the existing gutter system, and French drains will be installed if the gutter system is not feasible. They could also consider dry wells to downspouts. The deck that's existing will be replaced with no new addition to that decking. Sonotubes will be repurposed or replaced if necessary. Any excavated material will be stockpiled outside of the flood zone to the northeast of the property or removed. And, let's see. At the time of the survey, we felt that the AE zone 11, as shown, runs through the middle of the property. But since then, we've heard from the building commissioner that he feels that the entire project is within the flood zone. So
Right.
whatever we do for what we propose for in the flood zone, we'll propose for what we thought was outside the flood zone. Machinery for excavation should only be needed for about maybe 14 days and will be stored either off-site or what we thought was originally outside of the flood zone, but we can coordinate that with the conservation agent. Proposed floor plans that are be submitted upon finalization, and no new bedrooms are proposed. This is just habitable space, an expansion of the living room and perhaps a kitchen. And we understand that ZBA application needs to be in, and that has, that's been done. They've applied, the owners applied for a ZBA hearing, and that is going to be August 23rd, 2025. Also, just to let you know, because I got this project late in the scheme of things, and I was under the gun to get the application in. I was unable to get any green cards back, and I was going to, so if you'd like to continue the hearing so that I can properly notify everyone, I'd be certainly happy to do that.
Yeah, we really can't proceed unless...
I have the abutters list from the clerk. so-
Okay, so that's yet to be completed.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I can leave a copy of the abutter notification letter with the agent as well. I can email that to him.
All right. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And again, I'll be glad to start from the beginning at the next hearing as well,
Sure.
if so required.
Okay, very good. Let me go to commissioners first, just for quick questions or comments.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. I would say in addition to the green slips, this also needs mitigation. And I'm not seeing any on the plan, but the plan also doesn't show elevations. So you're gonna need to come back with a plan that shows elevations, shows where the
Well, we show, there's a 12 topography contour in the northwestern corner, and then the flood zone AE 11 is the 11 contour that runs through the middle.
So.
And then there's the 10 and the 9, then there's some spot elevations, 8.8, 8.6.
The elevation line that runs through the middle, how do you have an elevation line that shows the edge of the floodplain that's then disputed by the building department?
Well, I believe they use the GIS map from the state, which is rather generous
Okay.
and rather,
So this was.
Not exact.
This was ground truth and verified, and that is the edge of the floodplain?
and there is a surveyor's stamp on it, too.
Okay. So I would say you need to have, that's fine then, but you need to have the mitigation plantings on there in order for us to approve this.
In a flood zone mitigation planting?
Yep, if you read
Okay.
our regulations, it's in there.
Okay.
Okay, other questions?
I would just say, when you come back, David, also, the narrative and the plan, they just aren't sufficient to assess compliance with or any regulatory relief needed for
And
Regulation 25.
it's changed a little, too, yeah.
Correct, yeah. So it's some, what I'm looking for is information on the construction methodology, so the timing, what's your plan for stormwater, and any alteration of the topography or the grading, as was mentioned, and then the percentage of vegetation on the lot, because that's a regulatory trigger for Regulation 25. So that's what I would say, and then if there are any...
Natural vegetation on lots.
Yes, and then, of course, the abutter notification, the function of that is so that the
absolutely, yeah.
neighbors can come to this hearing and provide their thoughts on the project, so that we have to give folks enough
Sure.
time to be able to do that before we can properly adjudicate this.
Thank you.
That's all I've got.
Other questions or comments? So, when I looked at the Town of Mashpee GIS layer, I was surprised, because it's not even close with the,
No,
with this.
I was confused, too, about
So
that.
given that, given the fact that AE 11, there is a tiny sliver along that boundary, I believe it's the northern boundary of the property, I even did a view looking through satellite imagery. It looked like there was a boat or something that, when the picture was taken, was stored back there. But in any event, we're going with the assumption that that AE flood zone is going to pretty much cover that entire proposed addition, correct?
That's what I'm told.
Yeah. So we've been working on Regulation 25, which is land subject to coastal flow, a very old, antiquated version, and it's got some issues, primarily setback issues that legal counsel has upheld that should be used because land subject to coastal flow is in itself a resource area. So it's kind of hard to have a setback from a resource area when you're right in the middle of it. So what we've been doing over the past year or two is rewriting Regulation 25. In fact, tonight, later on in our agenda, we have the final version of that coming before the commission for promulgation. So you're actually working under that old version. So you would also need a waiver request for Regulation 25, I believe it's 25C, 8, and 9. And
Sorry, could you say that again?
25C, 8, and 9. 8 is the definition of the setbacks, and 9 actually talks about these. At the time, they were 50-foot setbacks, but we've increased our buffer zone, so now it's 75. The agents do have the forms, or they can, guide you through the process of including the waiver when you do come back. Because without that, my first question would be, where's your setback?
Yeah.
Because we're working under that old rule. Okay?
Okay.
Anything else? I think we're good.
But this project going forward will be held to the current
Yes.
state 25 standards, right?
We don't have a new one yet. That has to be voted on, and then there'll be a short grace period, and we'll go from there.
So that would be one of the conditions. Motion to continue with one of the conditions being,
He's going to be requesting that when we're done.
no, I understand that, but we're gonna be looking for him to ask for a waiver.
I have a list if you want me to
Oh,
reiterate.
if you've got
I
the
can
list,
definitely
then
do
I'm
that.
happy to
So-
defer.
Oh, yeah, I'm a note taker.
Dan's been doing it, and I've been doing it myself.
Good.
So, Dan, is there anything else you would like to add before I?
No, that was the biggest thing, was the mitigation and the waiver. Just making sure those are in. Waiver is, basically says you cannot get outside of the flood zone on this property for the addition. So you just need to apply the waiver. In that waiver, it just accounts for mitigation, so you might have to put a little more mitigation in. The mitigation's 2 to 1 for square footage is what it comes down to. And I'll email you tomorrow as well with the information needed on that.
Do you
That's
have a
not a problem.
planting list that you like, or just go by the?
We use the Cape Cod Commission planting list, they're recommended there, so whatever for that is acceptable. The commission might have some thoughts on items, but that can be discussed night of. That's not a concern there. So what I have on for the continuance is the abutters notice, most definitely the mitigation, where that's going to be, how much that's going to be, as well as how much natural vegetation currently exists on the property. And then obviously the waiver as well.
Okay. If it softens the commission's view of this project in any way, if you, on that GIS map, if you pan out, you'll see all the properties that are between that property and any coastal resource area. So I don't think any water is going to get there anytime soon without hitting somebody else first, you know what I'm saying? But it is what it is, though, If it's in the
Absolutely.
flood zone, then it's in the flood zone.
And also, I want to also recommend just revising the narrative to include that you're going to be installing it on piles.
Okay,
That is big for the further regulation as well. So I would recommend just revising the narrative, just adding that, or whatever mitigation or
go
whatever.
through that with a fine tooth comb, add a lot of construction narrative and specifics,
Okay, excellent.
including the mitigation.
Okay, so we have a request then for a continuance.
Yes,
And,
please.
Can we
When do we want to do it?
look at a date?
July 24th is our next one.
Okay.
So that's some time, that's a month away from now. So,
Can you have everything by then?
Well, if I got it this far in 2 weeks, I think I can get it done.
all right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. so we have a request then for
I'll make
a
a motion.
continuance to July 24th.
Yeah.
Motion
moved.
by Alex.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Is there a second? Thank you, Sandy. Motion made and seconded. Up for discussion amongst commissioners. Hearing none, let me take a vote. Marjorie?
Yeah.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, sir. We'll see you on the
For your time, I
24th.
appreciate it.
Thanks. Good work for 2 weeks.
As well.
I said, good work for 2 weeks.
Let me put that away. Welcome back, Steve. That ended up being continued. Okay. All right, our next hearing is 157 Daniels Island Road, Frank and Christina Varanos. This is a proposed installation of access stairs, pier, ramp, and float. The representative is Down Cape Engineering. We have a DEP file number of 433348, and I think we're good to go. If I can have your name for the record, sir, we can begin.
Happy to, Chairman Colombo, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor. I'm also a civil engineer and helping Dr. Marinos out and his wife out with a little bit more permitting on their property. You may recall this was an older home which you were gracious enough to allow to be raised and replaced. It was a tight site, but we put an IA system in. They invested in top-notch technology. And that's underway right now. If you went out to the site, you would have seen the foundation already in the ground. They've asked us to do a pier ramp and float, so a separate matter. It's a new notice of intent for that. The site has a number of resource areas that we look at under the Act and under your local regulations. The location, for those that don't recall, or the public, we're on basically on Pompanesett Bay. It's a small inlet off of that. 157 Daniels Island Road. The Big Bay, which is directly to the east, is active. Is a large embayment off of the south side of the Cape, obviously. We're doing the single family now. The order was issued under year 043-3322 in December of last year. The resource area delineations are all fresh and shown on the plan in the same manner. We're looking at coastal beach, there's a salt marsh, land containing shellfish, a fish run, and land under ocean are the resource areas that we cross in this matter. So within those resource areas, from the narrative, there's proposed access stairs, a fixed pier, ramp, and pile-floated supports. That's the construction area within those resource areas. We're outside of NHAS priority estimated habitat. When you look at the performance standards under the Act and your local regulations, we feel we comply. The coastal bank is mainly a structural rock wall. It was an older home, and that was allowed to be protected. The bank is not a sediment source. It's stable. There's a small platform at the beginning of the stairway, initiates up near the top, and it's situated in an area where there's no shrubby vegetation. There's a spot where it's a good landing spot. We don't have to disturb any native vegetation. So there's a platform and 4 4x4s landward of the top of the bank. That'll concentrate the foot traffic right onto that and thereby protect the bank. The post will rest on the rock structure on the way down, and so there's no excavation or disturbance of the wall. It's a solid wall with large and adequate anchoring rocks to land a couple of posts on. Then we get down to the bottom. We pick up the piling, typical piling supported structure for the rest of the pier. So the coastal beach you're looking at, that's just landward of the salt marsh and extends down to mean low water. Your intertidal area, has a number of purposes under the Act, sediment transport, wave attenuation, and a habitat for marine life. We have 3 bents of 12-inch piles crossing that area. It's a total of 4.7 square foot of bottom areas displaced, so fairly minimum. The barges would, the pilings would be installed by barge. We're able, generally minimal, jet them and then drive them. We'll do a full 15-foot embedment so that they stay there during storms and ice events. And then, you know, you would expect some temporary turbidity during the installation process, but long-term negative impacts from the presence of pilings are not expected. The vertical surface area of pilings has been shown to serve as spat and barnacle collection and habitat areas. I think that's sometimes understated. You concentrate on a little bit of footprint, but you're getting a lot of surface area that, especially as years go on, you can see does serve as good marine habitat. Salt marsh under 310 CMR 10.32 and your Mashpee Regulation 17 is, of course, a very important coastal resource area. We've been designed this project to minimize the impacts of that resource. We're going to have full 11-foot spans. The pilings will span the salt marsh strip with the bottom of the stringers at least 6 feet above the marsh. And that does meet the latest recommendations for 4 foot wide, 1.5 times higher. So you'll have a lot of light and air under that, and it's a thin strip of salt marsh that we're spanning. I'm going to go with a full 1-inch deck spacing, and again, no wider than 4. So the combination of adequate height, width, and deck spacing will, plus the dock is almost north-south, which is suggested by a lot of the regulations in terms of allowing the light to come in, morning and afternoon light. It'll allow for the salt marsh growth to continue with very minimal impacts. So I think the alignment is suitable for the area. Look at lands containing shellfish under 310 CMR 10.34 and Mashpee Regulation 15, fish run under CMR 10.35, land under ocean 310 CMR 10.25. It's a local, the area is a local designated family shellfishing area, so it's deemed significant for shellfish habitat. Consultation and input from the Shellfish Constable regarding mitigation is expected, and indeed he did weigh in and noted that there were some soft shell clams and quahogs in the area, and would expect that as needed under the piles where this direct impact would relocate any shellfish that we found there, and enhancement or monies towards the offset of the loss of, the slight loss of habitat impact would be expected. Indeed, he did bring up a monetary figure of about $4,700, which the Verinos are happy to pay. We think that that's going to be a multiple of the effect of this. If we get that much spat and fresh shellfish, it'll be, the long-term effect of that will be a nice positive for the whole project. So they're happy to contribute to that. The bottom areas for the 9 12-inch piles in that area, that's including the float, is only about 7 square feet. We'll encapsulate that flotation so that you don't have some of the issues you've had on the ponds. The docks and floats must have the property address and the DEP permit number displayed in perpetuity, and they'll be stored in the contractor's yard off-season. We're not going to try and haul them up here with the steep bank and so forth. The floats are less than the 200 square foot total. There's 2.3 foot of water at the end of the float at mean low water, so we're very close to even the DMF's regulation there, and exceed yours. The 11-foot spacing of the pilings allows for shellfish access while also providing enough stability to stand wave and storm events. There's a fairly good fetch here, and with young kids and grandchildren and a good-sized boat, we kind of need a platform that's stable to get in and out. So I think the 200 square foot is reasonable. The harbor master had no issues with the location in terms of impacts to his concerns of safety and hazard of navigation. Again, you've got a full 11 foot of space between the pilings. If they don't shellfish under the float, maybe there'll be a little bit of spat to reproduce. I think sometimes it's always nice to have
a few that aren't plucked out of the ocean, but a little tongue-in-cheek there. But, you know, it's, again, you've got nice, it's not going to ground out under any circumstance because it's got so much water under it, so there'll be good habitat under there long-term. And the constable was comfortable with seeding and allowing that to continue to be a shellfish habitat, according to his letter, in so many words. Non-CCA pressure-treated, non-leaching materials are required. When you do have the bigger pilings, there's the exception for that, or timber over 3 inches. Lighting directed downward, permanent signs positioned to the mean high water indicate the public's right of passage under the pier. Again, this is out on Daniels Island. It's not a highly trafficked area for foot traffic, but I think even I could probably walk under this as tall as I am without any issues. And there'll be signs this will need a Chapter 91 permit. The DEP issued their number. They didn't have too much to say except, you know, would need the Chapter 91, and they did, the DMF did issue a letter, which I thought was generally fairly positive. Again, we met the height that they usually chime in on, so that was not in their boilerplate. We're at 2.3 at the end of the pier. They like 2.5, so they did have that comment. But again, it's a relatively shallow embayment. We don't gain much by going out at all. And I don't think, you know, the extra length when you're not going to ground out is worth it. But we'll certainly listen to the commission if you want a longer pier. Construction protocol, we go through quickly on that. You'll carry in by motorboat the materials in a barge to store and install the pilings. And then, of course, would take great care on the salt marsh and no machinery to impact the intertidal marsh areas. The pilings will be initially jetted, then hammer-driven is typical for the area. And in conclusion, you know, although minor impacts are expected during the installation process, those impacts will be mostly temporary, and any long-term impacts considered de minimis. The shellfish mitigation process is expected to offset any impacts and will serve to enhance the shellfish resource areas. Again, you got $4,700 to seed and buy SPAD and ensure future generations of shellfish. The pier won't invite, and we feel that'll be a net benefit to the public, and we're happy to help with that. The pier will not impede navigation nor impact access to existing moorings at sufficient distance from the abutting licensed piers, greater than 100 feet. It does not extend seaward of a line drawn between the abutting piers, so we're not proud of the neighbors, which will look reasonable from almost any perspective. And it won't impede navigation or impact access to existing moorings. Sufficient distance, we went over that, over 100 from the abutting lot lines, which is important. And then we would need a waiver if required for work within 50 feet of the coastal resource areas. You know, as listed above, it's tough to build a pier without being in that zone. So that would be the summary. You've got, you know, many attachments and area maps and information. I guess the only thing I would add too is we usually run water and electric out to the end of the pier. It's very typical, and we drew them graphically, but I forgot to put the W in the
I'm
E.
sorry, while you're leaning that way, I can't hear what you're saying.
Sure. So what I was saying is that you typically run a water hose and some power out there so you can plug the boat in and rinse it off. And while they're shown graphically, I forgot to put the little water and electric beside them there. So I'll add those to the Chapter 91 permit. But that's, you know, again, we talked about the lighting, so obviously there would be some electric. But that was just one little thing I noted while I was sitting here tonight. And there's notes on the plan. We feel we meet your regulations robustly, and I'd be glad to answer any questions if you guys have them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'll go to commissioners first for questions or comments.
I'll start off. Dan, what size boat is going to be on that float?
He doesn't currently have a boat yet, but he's looking at, you know, long 20s, probably, ish boat, a good-sized family boat.
Okay, so what do you think would draw, a boat that size would draw?
A good-sized boat is, you know, 24 inches or so, something like that, 27 inches. you know, probably almost all boats have inboards now, and they raise them up, and they're, you know, pretty low. There's not a ton of water in here, so he's not gonna put a deep draft boat in here by any means. We made sure that he knew that it was a shallow draft area.
Okay, so at mean low water, you're saying there's 2.3 feet of depth, right, at mean low water?
Yeah, at mean low, yeah.
All right, so what is the depth of the float?
Well, it depends on how much flotation you put in them, and so we can do a high flotation float, which would only be a few inches down. If you use a smaller footprint, they're a little deeper, but I think this would be appropriate to do a large format wide, and the force of buoyancy is equal to the weight of the volume of the water displaced. So if you displace anything near 200 square foot, you'll only be an inch or two down. And so it can be a very low profile, and that might be appropriate for this case.
I noticed when I was out there that, what time of year did you pick up those moorings?
It was recently. I could see, I got the
I
survey
looked at,
date.
you're showing 3 moorings here and 2 further out, but there was no stake in the water to see where the end of the float would be in relation to those moorings, because there's a 17 Boston Whaler on one mooring.
Yeah.
It seemed nearby when I took a picture, and there's a couple other, moorings nearby, so I couldn't tell how, I was standing right where the stake was.
Yeah, 5/29/24 was when that was surveyed, so.
So a year ago.
Yeah, a year ago, about this time of year.
All right, so I'm concerned about that. And then at the top of the bank, there's no erosion control for that platform during construction, I noticed. And then there's a post that's going to sit on the existing wall.
Yeah.
So how's that proposed to be held into the?
So what we'd do is just have a typical little hammer drill and drill in a couple little epoxy bolts and bolt it down. So that would be how we'd do that.
So there's no erosion control on your plan at the top of the bank, so during construction?
Yeah, that would be a fine condition if you'd like to. There is a silt fence that's going around the house, and we can make sure we re-put that around where those 4 posts are. That would be a fine condition. We'd be happy to do that. And with respect to the moorings, the harbor master looked at this plan and is familiar with the area, and I think he can jockey things around. He was not uncomfortable at all. His letter basically says no issues with the.
Would have been helpful with a stake to show where the end of the float was in relation.
Yeah, it must have floated away because we always do that, so I don't know what happened to that.
Yeah, no, there wasn't anything. Did you read the DMF letter?
I did, yes, I alluded to that a bit,
So-
they're.
Yeah, I have some concerns over the shellfish and the winter flounder.
Yeah,
And-
the timing is certainly important. You'll want to
Yeah.
condition it so we don't hurt the winter flounder during the construction period. That's appropriate.
Well, I'm worried about permanent damage. And then, they mentioned a 2.5-foot clearance for a float stop. So if you get 2.3 feet of mean low water, that means that float's going to be out of the water.
So, no, what it would be is it would need to keep it up a few inches. So there's 2 ways to do that. You can put feet down under the float so that when it hits the bottom of the float is 2.5-foot stops. Or you could have chains on the post to stop it. But you've got 2.3 feet, so you only got to lift it up a couple inches on the one side and 6 on the other.
But at a low tide or even a full moon low tide,
Yeah, so it would be sitting up just a little bit,
be
yeah.
out of the
yeah.
water, basically.
Well, that's what float stops
Or-
do, they stop it, yeah, and if you've got a very shallow draft, yeah, you'd lift it right up. But the problem with that is, you're 2 things. One, with the feet, you are, bumping into the ground with something, whereas if you didn't have that, nothing would bump the ground. Or you have to have on all 4 corners of the floats, because they'll rack and they just doesn't work, so we'd need more piles, which I don't know if that makes sense. So for those reasons, we're hoping to just leave it, it's a recommendation, again, they're boilerplate. They're there for a reason, but, in this case where it's -4 mean low, or -4 elevation all around that area, going out a little further doesn't make any sense. And where it's only a few inches off, we thought, and it meets your local regulations, I think the spirit and intent is met. So we're hoping to not have to do pile-supported float stops.
And then my last concern is, I know some of these barges have cranes, but even, you know, at the water depth there, I don't even know how you can get a barge close enough, even with the crane, to put in the pylons at the bottom of the wall. Too. So that's another concern with a barge coming in there.
They'll want to certainly come in on a good high tide and use a low profile barge. But, you know, they're crafty people, these dock builders. They'll figure it out. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Set. Other questions?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Steve said, but I'm also concerned with the removable steps to the beach. Are those going to be anchored down? Like if there's a storm in the middle of the summer and they're just floating there, are they just going to rip off in a storm?
Well, we could certainly look at locking them down with some helical anchors at the bottom, if you thought that was required. You know, if there's a big storm coming, we could certainly, you know, he could certainly remove them. I'm sure he'd remove his boat, and he could probably throw them on the boat and get out of Dodge. But whatever your pleasure, but I don't think they want to be there all year round, so that was why we removed them seasonally.
Right, but I'm worried about during the winter, the summer storms. And
Yeah.
do
Well-
they absolutely have to be there?
You know, it's nice to be able to get down to the beach, you know. They could walk way down the end. The neighbor has some access to the beach down there, but, you know, then you got to cross the salt marsh, and there's impacts where this gets you across that salt marsh to the beach. So I think they would be pretty handy to have, and it would avoid some salt marsh impacts long-term, so, you know, we would enjoy to have them. I can certainly set a couple of stainless helical anchors and lock them down so that, I mean, I wouldn't guarantee they wouldn't go anywhere if we get a hurricane, but, you know, at least during moderate storms, they certainly wouldn't go anywhere.
Okay, Sandy?
Yep, thank you.
Other questions?
I have a couple.
Sure, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, if I can jump in. Good evening, Dan. Just one note off the top, in the waiver, the waiver request at the bottom of the narrative, I just want to note that we have a 75-foot buffer, not a 50-foot buffer.
Yes, the second time you've caught me on that.
We
That
do,
changed,
yeah. It's, the numbers, they're important.
Yeah,
But-
it is.
But I did want to just go back to Regulation 17 and ask for some education from my fellow commissioners and the staff here. It says here in Reg 17 that activities which will result in building within or upon removing, filling and or altering any of the above-mentioned resource areas, and again, this is coastal resource areas, including salt marsh, land under ocean, or within 75 feet of said resource areas may be permitted if they are water-dependent and will not induce cumulative impairment of the functions for which the resource is presumed to be significant. So my read of the Division of Marine Fisheries letter was a little bit different and seems to conflict with the analysis here in the narrative. But my question for you all, before I have just a couple more comments on that, is what does a water-dependent activity consist of? And does this constitute one so that we can permit it through Regulation 17?
Yeah, this would be a water dependent.
So water dependent would be they come in through the water to do the work?
Through the water, on the water.
Yeah, fishing, fowl, and navigating, this would be for boating, which is the classic water-dependent use, would be up here. Yeah, that would be basically the definition of it.
Yeah, it is the most common water dependent use as a
A
private dock
boathouse
system.
might be another one.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. And just to go back to the DMF letter, if I had to give you the Cliff Notes version of this, I would just say it was a no, that they would not recommend the project. And I do see here in their first comment, a new pier and 2 floats have the potential to negatively impact nearby shellfish resources and fisheries in a variety of ways. Some of these impacts can be avoided or reduced with best management practices, which you've done a great job describing, Dan, but others are unavoidable and will result in permanent impacts to shellfish habitat and associated fisheries access. And I do see that in the analysis here, we're looking at this as a net benefit and an improvement, but the Shellfish Constable is talking about continued seeding, so that this would not be new use of the area for seeding, and we would be paying an astronomical fee. So I don't see that as an improvement. I do have some concerns over the significant impacts to the habitat for shellfish and winter flounder. So in addition to the time dependence of the project, I do question the necessity and if there's a way to scale back the scope as DMF has recommended, in particular the float size. Just to go back to Commissioner Cook's comments, their comment is at least 2.5 feet above the substrate over marine habitat for the float. So it's not, 2.5 is not the ceiling, this is the minimum, right? And we're talking about 2.3. So I do think we need to take these recommendations and impacts a little more seriously.
No, you're certainly entitled to that opinion, but there's a lot of soft language in there that, you know, if you know, they certainly contemplate you guys approving it, and they'd recommend, you know, float stops if you do that. That is one way that I think that you could read this, that they're absolutely fine with it if you put float stops in. Again, there's positives and negatives to everything, but again, the $4,700, they wouldn't have that money without it, and you can buy a lot of shellfish spat with $4,700, and then you're looking at the propagation of those over the years. So I think that any way you cut it is a nice benefit, you know, and should see future generations. And again, people tend to ignore the fact that when you put a structure like this, you're basically building a mini artificial reef. You've got every pier I've ever been to, you got little fish hiding in them, you've got barnacles on them, there's seaweed growing. It's like a beautiful little aquatic garden there. You look off and it's just barren in other places. The fish hide from the osprey under them. There's many, many benefits that the DMF don't advocate on. They're very cautious, and certainly I respect their position. They're experts, and they're concerned about a lot of things, but net here, you know, it's just like the piers around it. There's almost enough water for even their very conservative recommendations. We fully meet your recommendations. We'll do the time of year, and I think with that generous contribution to the Shellfish Fund, the benefits definitely outweigh the detriments. That's my opinion.
Okay, I'm going to move this along. Is there another question, Sarah?
I would just agree with the agent on the through-flow decking for the length of the deck. Yeah, that was
Sure.
it.
Okay.
Can I
Yeah, absolutely.
as you're moving on?
If Sarah's finished, you're
I'm
finished?
done, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, thank you.
Marjorie, the floor is yours.
Well, that was, the only issue that I had was the same, and I'm wondering, do you have a remedy? Do you have a recommendation for how best to deal with that? Or are you suggesting that we reject the whole proposal? Is there anything in between?
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think so much of this is good on the balance, but that was the first thing that jumped out to me, that there were some things that just cannot be mitigated, particularly for the shellfish. And the habitat issues are not dealt with. And they're just saying it's outright no, it's not good. So do you have any ideas, thoughts, or recommendations for mitigation or for conditions that we could put on this? Because I don't.
I'm not the dock expert.
I'm flummoxed.
Yeah.
Well, the 4,600 or 4,700 bucks, what is that? Does that cover what the loss could be, or is it more than what the loss will be? Like, what is that total mitigation?
It's a
So
penalty, right?
Dan might be able to speak to that better than I. I mean, we don't want to, you know, it's a contribution to shellfish that the constable felt was reasonable compensation for the limited impacts of the piles and the pier ramp and float would be the way that I would put it. But if Dan wanted to expand on how they arrive at that figure, and again, it's a generous amount of money when you're buying spat, and it's going to be used, I believe, exclusively for that purpose, right? They don't go and buy fuel for their trucks with it, right?
Yeah, so this shellfish mitigation money goes directly for new spat for the propagation program. It's broken down like it is on the screen there, where they say, in this case, 30 cents a piece for cohogs and 45 cents for soft shell clam. And then they come down to a whole square footage for that, and they calculate it out for each one. So that's how they do it. Each species of shellfish has their own metric to it for money as well as square footage and all that, and then they calculate it out from there. And again, it all does go to the shellfish propagation program. So yeah.
And is it guaranteed to go back to Pompanesett, this area, or will it go
It-
someplace else in,
Wherever they-
place in Mashpee?
No, wherever they go, but I do know this location is a family shellfishing area. So the family shellfishing areas, they are very intent on hitting. I want to say first, I'm just not sure, but they are an active area, so.
But there's no guarantee that this would be reseeded over some other place in.
There's no guarantee, but I do know that the Shellfish Constable and staff, they seed a lot of the whole area every single year, so.
Yeah, but is there anything that you would recommend, or that Drew would recommend, that we could put in as a condition that would hold the owner to some standard level? I mean, I'm not sure what it is. I'm asking it.
Well, there's
to
the
get benefit
conditions.
of the wisdom of the rest of the commission.
There's the conditions that the DMF is recommending, things
Yeah.
of that nature. You also have the discretion if you would want some, I don't want to say off-site mitigation, but say there was some spots in the bank or anything that needed some extra mitigation. As a commission, you could also decide on that. So yeah, it just depends on how you want to go about conditioning it and how you want to mitigate the type of mitigation you want. DMF has some recommendations there for, I don't want to call it mitigation, but for offsets.
Yeah.
Obviously, the shellfish mitigation fee is another one, so it just depends on.
I've just never been a fan of the fee making up for the impact of the environment.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand what you're saying with that.
Yeah. DMF recommends reducing the float size and the time of year.
That may help.
restrictions, right?
Around timing, too. Pompanesett Bay has its channel dredged regularly. And then Safe Pompanesett Bay also just got permitted for their wider channeling, which they're going to go forward and, increase the channel size coming out of Pompanesett Bay.
Good.
So there's a lot going on in the bay, and this will add another agitation in the bay, and how do we need to consider that at all? Or is that even something that you could say, Shawnee, you're crazy, this doesn't add more or less, but there's a lot going on.
You can consider any and all cumulative effects to the resource areas. I mean, that's your call, that's your duty. Yep. And then base it on regulations that we have.
But dredging, there are definitely some impacts, but they're short-term, and then the long-term benefits are, it breathes a lot better. You've got a nice
Yeah,
big
no,
open
but you're
channel
gonna,
with
you're
cool
gonna,
water
you're
coming
gonna
in.
agitate the area at the same time, are you doing it at the same time of the dredging, or
Well,
when is?
certainly not during the winter flounder breeding season, and if you'd like to condition that it not be done at the same time as any nearby dredging, we're happy to comply with that. And so in any manner. And then don't forget, you've got sea level rise where, it's going to go up 1.5 inches in 10 years, and then we'll have the water in 20 years. It might be quite a bit more water here. So there's that too to think about, that, like it or not, the level's rising, and we're going to have more water very soon.
Other questions?
We've been talking about this project for too long. It's been going on too long. But I did want to bring up, you spoke about the height and width of the decking for light to penetrate.
Yeah.
But it's not like through flow decking. You don't think through flow decking is necessary because of the height and Orientation or what?
Again, if it's, I didn't ask or receive staff comments, but if you would recommend through flow decking, we're happy to provide it. You know, with a north-south orientation and 6 feet off and 1 inch spacing, I don't think you need it, because you get the morning sun that's coming in, and then you get a couple hours in the middle of the day. It's probably good to give it a break, and then you get a beautiful afternoon sun. So I think it'll thrive without it, but if you want it, just say the word.
Dan, you all set with your comments? Anything?
Nope, I'm good. Everything was definitely covered.
All right. I have a couple of questions on that staircase. That's an aluminum staircase?
Everything was wood that we have, temporary steps down. I don't think we specified. If you'd like them made out of aluminum, we could certainly accommodate that. It would be lighter to move.
Well, the concern I have, we have had with other projects in the past, a lot of serious storm damage along shorelines. And people's staircases just up and go, and they're scattered here, there, and everywhere. And then it's a question of, well, who owns this stringer, and who owns this ballast, and who owns this, and who owns that? So we've actually conditioned projects in the past where the owner's address or DEP file number, something would be embossed on that wooden staircase, so that if and when it goes. And again, this is in a velocity zone. This isn't just a staircase that's sitting, you know, in a nice little bay where nothing can happen. This is in the V zone. Yeah. And with the kind of storms that we're getting, it doesn't have to be a winter hurricane, believe me. So that's why I asked the question. Is it wood? Is it aluminum? Is it going to be left there unattended, and all of a sudden we get the no-name storm that comes up and you only have a 24-hour notice and this thing is gone? So I have some concerns in terms of the structure, the integrity of that staircase, but I also concur with a lot of the commissioner's concerns on the cumulative effect to shellfish and primarily the winter flounder environment. I know you went on talking about these little mini aquariums, but before any of those docks were there, that shoreline was teeming and alive and well. And bit by bit by bit, we tend to have a cumulative effect of dock after dock after dock after dock. So then when I read the DMF letter, and these are experts, these are state-level experts, they're questioning the size of the float. Do you really need that much of a float to have access to the water? And I get it. I have a boat. It's only a 17-footer, but I wouldn't need a float that big. But when you were asked, what is the boat, there was no answer. So we don't know what kind of boat we're even talking about.
The answer was high 20s, I mean, maybe even like a 30-foot. It looked at, you know, some shallower draft 30-footers.
The float meets regulations. You know, you can't have a float that's bigger than 200 square feet. You are at the max.
Right.
You couldn't go another square inch, let alone a foot.
Right.
But a 200 square foot, well, that's off the screen, but when we looked at the calculations, that's a big chunk of the detrimental effect to shellfish. And the fee is a one-time fee. We crossed that bridge several years ago, and we as a commission were adamant about having this an annual fee, but it becomes a menagerie of work to keep up with all of those fees and what's going on. So yeah, it's a big hit, $4,600, but it's once. And that dock is not going anywhere. It's going to be there for years and years and years if Mother Nature doesn't take it away. So I concur with a lot of the concerns and questions that I've heard, and I just wanted to get that on the record before I went out to the public.
Can I do a follow-up question then? I'm wondering, do you know, is there a standard that we could rely on to have as a condition to reduce the size of the pier and in some way have it be a permanent remedy? It's not going to do it all, but I'm wondering if there's, if that's better than, we'll never be able to go back and tell them your boat's too big. We just won't.
So what's coming to mind for me is that in other towns, there are no more docks being built in the velocity zone.
I know that.
Even for like public institutions aren't allowed to build them. So because of the impacts. So I think we all have to vote
At the
our
very
conscience
least,
on this
though,
one.
might there be a standard we could turn to?
For building new docks in the velocity zone, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
starting with this as an example. You know, it may be the first. We shouldn't let that deter us, though.
Well, you have to live with the regulations that you have.
Yep.
However, I've heard several commissioners have cumulative effect concerns, and that is Regulation 24.
Yeah.
Cumulative effect. If you as a commissioner feel as though there's an adverse cumulative effect to the proposal,
Yeah.
you can ask the applicant and the applicant's representative to scale it down. Consider scaling it down, ask for a
Right.
continuance. Because if the majority of this board is sitting here and they're not happy with the cumulative effect, when I call for that vote, the vote will be what it is. But there are regulations that support a conservation commissioner's concern about cumulative effect on various wetland resources and species of animals. And that's really what we're talking about.
That's exactly what.
Yeah, well, I hear you loud and clear, that, you know, one thing is that this is one individual, and he, you know, has a significant amount of frontage. It's not like these smaller lots where you've got pier after pier after pier, you know, very close together. You've got over 100, almost 200 feet to the next pier on the east, and 113 to the west. We're only displacing about 7 square feet of land under ocean. What if we went to, say, a 22 by 7 foot float system? Significant reduction in width or at least a foot in length. I'd hate to go to 6 feet because I'm a big guy. They're tippy. A 6 foot wide float is not safe. But we could go down to 7 and then say 22 or 23, and there you have a pretty significant reduction. We'll leave it out the length that it is now so that we get the water depth. You don't want to come back any because the motors would be out there in the deeper water. Would that be something if we went to 7 by 23, take a foot off the whole length? That's 25 square foot of reduction there, and 8 by 2 or 3 at the end, another 16 square feet.
Well,
That's, I think, in the spirit of the DMF, a good compromise. Again, it's, you allow the 200, you've allowed the 200 on many, many floats in town, and, you know.
So what
it's-
I'm hearing from you is, in light of the concerns that the commission has based on the DMF letter, that you seem to be open to scaling the size of the project.
Yeah, especially.
I don't want to
with-
get into, you know, so many feet and so many inches. It would appear to me as though you're listening to what I said earlier and thinking, well, maybe I should come back with a little bit of a different proposal that's a little more environmentally friendly. And if that's the case, rather than take the time, because we got a lot of stuff on our agenda tonight.
Sure.
I would suggest that you request for a continuance,
Yeah.
come back with a different proposal that makes a little more sense. Think about those stairs, think about the fact that you're in the velocity zone, and come back with some different ideas. And, you know, it might fall in a more favorable reaction, I don't know. I'm just, you know, I'm getting the,
Yeah, well, I appreciate the careful consideration tonight, and, but again, so I think I will do that. I'll request a continuance. I'll come back with a slightly scaled back plan, but, and I think we'll take a look, and I'll give you the option for float stops, and you can make the call on that. But I appreciate your time very much. So continue to a date certain.
You can do till a date certain or July 24th.
July 24th should be fine.
Okay, excellent.
okay, so we have a request for a continuance to July 24.
6:30 PM.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie.
All right, I
Further
appreciate your
discussion,
careful-
hold on. Further discussion or deliberation on the motion? Sandy?
Yeah, so I want to talk to you. Do you want to talk to you too?
Well, I was just wanting to say, I'd like to see some more concrete erosion control at the top, too. I know you talked about silk fence, but it was sort of vague.
So let's make sure we have a laundry list, right?
Yeah.
So, and I just, to be fair, with the stairs, the height, the depths, I mean, if we're shrinking the dock, we're asking to come back with it shorter, less, then it's like less depth and less draft and less size boat that no one's gonna regulate. or police. There's just a lot with this that I just want it to be known that even though we're sending you back to come back with a better plan, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily gonna pass.
No, I fully understood. You have,
Because I hate that though. Like, I hate continuing it to not giving you enough guidance where we know it can be favorable. That doesn't feel good, but, it's really hard. You're in the velocity zone.
yeah, it's a V zone,
Do you
but
wanna
it's
do a
also
laundry list
Pompanesett
of
Bay. It's
concerns?
not-
Yeah,
Take a vote on the motion.
want to make
Could you
sure.
do that?
Yeah.
And I
We're
don't
in
want him to go
deliberation,
ahead
so-
before the applicant has, can I do, when you're doing your whole list of conditions, et cetera, would that be the right time just to?
That's the time, this is the time. We're deliberating on the motion to continue
good.
this, so.
So this
let's-
time,
let's get
I
our
just want to
concerns.
say, it's very related to what we were saying about the shellfish, et cetera, but there's also a bullet point on the floats that disturb the bottom sediments, et cetera, that the float be at least 2.5 feet above the substrate over marine habitat. And what I'm aware of, but not an expert on, is that as you reduce, as the applicant, I want to speak, as the applicant reduces the size of the float, the weight of the float is also going to have an impact on how far the difference is. That 2.5 feet matters to me. I think it
Right.
matters to you. It's
And it was, we heard testimony about the thickness of the float and the materials that would be used and how much that float would sink into the water. That's all up to the applicant when they come back
I just-
to clarify that for you. One of the concerns that I had, that I believe it was Steve brought up, was, what kind of a barge is going to be coming in here to access
that's
to
in
get
here
those.
too, yeah.
So, maybe we should get some information about the specific barge that's coming in so that we know that there's not going to be damage done to that substrate.
Right.
Yeah. You want
I
me
just
to
thought to
just go through a
Alex's
list
point.
that I wrote down?
Right,
That would be helpful?
sure.
Okay, so the list I had is the Regulation 24 cumulative effects,
Yeah,
number of pilings, damage from the work barge, everything that's in the DMF letter, all those
Yes,
concerns, lack of water depth, and then the erosion control at the top of the bank for the platform, and then the no actual boat details. It could be a 25-footer, it could be a 32-footer. Depends, each boat style, has draws differently, and if there's no boat detailed on it, how do we know how it's going to affect the substrate? And whether that boat will fit in there or not.
But also, we don't, if they sold it and a new person came, we don't have like this long arm reaching into the future that like protects the size of boats that are on things. Like, the harbor master doesn't have time or resources to go around and make sure of that. So, yeah, that would be great to know. And how do we realistically hold someone to that? I feel like it's asking for something that we can't enforce.
Unless be a condition.
we can
say-
condition it on
Condition,
the order
saying
of
maximum
conditions.
size boat.
So that at some point, when something is damaged, we can have an enforcement order because they went over the size? Like,
Exactly.
when would we
Yeah.
know it? The only way we would know it is if things get damaged.
Right.
And at that point,
That's not uncommon, though, on an awful lot of what we do.
Well, I get what you're saying. We don't have the people power to be out there policing all of this.
Right,
But
right,
I think it's incumbent upon the commission right now to take what's being proposed and do our best to get it right. And then times change, people come, people go, different boats come.
Right.
If and when the damage occurs, if it was conditioned on the original OOC, then when the certificate of compliance comes out, some of those conditions can be in perpetuity, and the new owner would be just as liable as the person that's proposing the work in the first place. So, it's not an easy thing to do, but it is a possible thing to do.
it's also possible to avoid altogether.
And the last thing is to put a stake back in where the proposal end of the float would be.
Happy to do
So
it, yep.
we can see that. yeah.
Can I add the waiver request?
We usually put a buoy out there, and I
Just
think,
get the
but
numbers
I
right.
can't imagine we didn't. Did you see a little buoy out there?
There were a bunch of mooring buoys, but I
That
couldn't
might
tell
have
what
been,
was what.
I'll double check, and we'll put a colored flag on it, so to
Okay.
make sure that you
Sandy?
get it.
Those removable stairs, we want to make, what are they going to be?
Helical
staked
anchors
down? Are they
or-
anchored
Yeah,
when they're
yeah.
there, or?
As much
at
information as
least,
possible.
yeah, name
Wood or
on
the
it.
aluminum, I think we should have them marked, because if they do go, who knows who they belong to. Are you comfortable with the information that you've got about the post that's going to be secured into the?
Oh, the bolts onto the rock wall?
Into the wall, stone wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, we need
I have
some more detailed construction details on that.
Yeah, we give you the rock anchor detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I need to add to that list, too.
Yeah, and
that
I can show
waiver
you the
request
picture.
Gets corrected.
This
I
is
don't
the
know
picture I took
if you
yesterday.
heard that. From 50 to 75 feet. The waiver request needs to reflect the current regulation.
Okay.
So,
75 feet, not 50.
He's busy right now, but let's make sure he
See
gets that.
that?
Yeah.
We'll get this as right as we can get it.
Yeah. Nice thing about moorings is we can move them, you know.
Dan, we also want to clean up the setback on that waiver request.
Yes, the 50 to 75, yep.
So if you could change that.
Now, was that water dependent, didn't need a waiver? How do we read that? I'll reread it, but either way, I'll correct the
If it's a
number.
water-dependent project, does it need the waiver?
No, this is a water-dependent project.
So, but I'll correct that
So you
typo
wouldn't-
anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
That was why we put if needed.
Understood.
All right, I think I've got the list, and I appreciate your careful
Let me take a vote first
consideration.
before you go. Steve?
yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So we'll
Thank
see
you.
you on the 24th.
24th, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Baby steps.
All right, give me a second to clean off my, I had a lot of windows open for this. That's not what I want. Okay. The next hearing is for 389 Monomoskoye Road. Lynn and Stephen Scalo propose raise and replace of an existing single-family dwelling, construction and maintenance of a new single-family dwelling, associated appurtenances, attached porch, patio, plunge pool, garage, and IA septic system. Representative is JC Engineering, Inc., with a DEP file number of 433345. Before we begin, I know I was not here at the last hearing, and I turned in my form so that I can participate in the discussions and vote. And who else was missing? Sarah, did
I
you?
just emailed the form to you, Dan.
Yep, so I have Sarah's, and the only one I don't have is Alex, so
So I
Alex.
didn't watch it and I was planning to abstain, but can I just participate in the discussion at all or no? Just, like, can I be a part of it and just not vote or not at all?
I don't have that answer. I believe you
we've done it.
just can't vote.
I thought it was I just can't vote, but,
Right,
Be same as an associate member,
yeah,
right?
right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd be able to ask questions and, sure.
Okay, I just don't want to step out.
Okay, so, and that was it, right, as far as, I know, Neil, you had a form?
filled out a form.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, so Neil did fill his out, but we have a full quorum.
We have a
tonight, so
quorum,
that's why.
but he can still ask
Yeah,
questions.
he can absolutely.
Okay. All right, then I guess we're set to begin. Good evening, sir. If I can have your name for the record, we'll get started.
Good evening, Brad Bertola with JC Engineering. We were here a couple weeks ago to discuss this project, and just prior to the hearing that took place, there was some, I guess, unpermitted clearing by the owner. There was discussions with the staff regarding some clearing out by the street, but the property owner misunderstood and thought it would be taken care of through this process. So we had requested a continuance at the last hearing to address both the comments from the commission received at that meeting, as well as the mitigation or replanting for the work that took place out by the street. So before you, we have submitted a revised plan. This includes relocating the house and pool and garage back 2 feet to get it removed from the coastal A zone. Coastal A zone follows the AE 13 line, AE 11 line, AE 13, AE 11 line that runs just on the water side of the plunge pool. The plunge pool itself will have an automatic cover and no fences being proposed for that process. Again, if building department is requiring it or there's a change, we would obviously have to be back in front of this board for that fence specifications. But they do have very tight requirements regarding pool fences around the pool, or in this case here, a smaller plunge pool. The mitigation or replanting was mostly concentrated towards the water side. We have expanded upon the mitigation closest to the salt marsh. Originally, I believe it was around excuse me, just under 3,700 square feet concentrated closest to the salt marsh, and we increased that to just over 5,000 square feet so that the planting of all the land between the original limit of work, the erosion control line, out to the salt marsh, minus a 4-foot pathway, would be vegetated with native plantings. Those plantings were slightly adjusted based upon staff's recommendations of swapping out various species that are more suitable for this area. Just because it's subject to more salt spray or water closest to the salt marsh. So to continue, maintain the minimum amount of natural area, there is an area closest to the street that would be left natural, replanted with shrubs, grasses, mulch areas out closest to the street. And then just for easy representation, we kept it at the building setback line. It's kind of an easy number, easy location to recreate in the field because it is a 40-foot setback off the street layout. The remaining area, there are some trees in there that are still remaining. We're proposing to we show it as loam and seed. If the property owner wants to do more plantings or more mulch or in that area, it's kind of an offset from the grass that was on the nearest the erosion control is now being basically relocated towards the front of the property. We do still maintain 32.5% of natural vegetation. Actually, it's an increase of 4% above and beyond the existing amount of natural vegetation on the property that's there today. Make sure I cover everything. As part of the mitigation, we are proposing 12 trees within the planted areas, and we're providing arborvitaes down both sides of the property. We do call out for 8 to 10 foot tall arborvitaes along the northern and southern boundary lines. And that's 15 on the south line and 15 on the north line for 30 arborvitaes plus 12 trees within the mitigation area. Pertaining to the trees that are taken down, we highlighted them in red. There are, I think, 14 I called out for amongst the, I thought I had written them down. There's about 14 around the footprint or just adjacent to the footprint, and there was a total of 32 trees that varied, that were 4 inches or greater on the property. And there's obviously a number of shrubs directly in the center of the footprint of the new house that are being removed as well. By sliding the house back just a couple feet, basically it shortened the driveway by a couple feet and actually pulled that out of the 150-foot salt marsh offset. So there's just a small decrease in footprint of the driveway. By relocating the house just a couple feet, it was just lessened the impact slightly. We are requiring, based upon the mitigation table, about 3,500 square feet of mitigation. We have 5,000 square feet shown within that highlighted area closest to the water, and that doesn't include the replanting of the shrubs. We also have, as I mentioned before, roof dry wells are proposed to capture 100% of the roof area. We did submit some drainage calculations to show that it's handling a 10-inch rainstorm, which is 4.98 inches, almost 5 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. So a decent amount of rain being able to completely capture and infiltrate without overflowing the area of the proposed roof. So that there was some questions from the commissioners regarding drains, and I believe it was from Mr. Colombo.
I wasn't here, no.
About possibly a drain in the slab.
Oh, that was Commissioner Godfrey.
But we're providing the roof drains to mitigate the amount of impervious area of the roof, so that there's still being infiltration on the property. Currently, there are no stormwater controls for the roof, so whatever runs off that roof is either infiltrated elsewhere or runs off the property. We also made sure we added, obviously, the second sheet to the plan that includes all the drainage information, septic information, the perk test, and groundwater separation. Again, the septic system, for those that weren't here, proposing a 1,500-gallon microfast septic tank, and that will drain into a pump, and that will pump to the proposed soil absorption system that's located just to the southeast of the proposed garage, colored there in blue on the plan. As I was driving here, even though I wasn't in the office for the past week, I said, I don't remember stapling floor plans to the project. So I only have them on email. The plans show the flood vents, which obviously are going to be reviewed by staff. It's building permit requirements, be reviewed by building department anyways. But this is going to be a flood compliant structure. It is in the A11 flood zone. We're proposing flood vents around the structure. It's going to be floodplain compliant. We won't get a building permit if he doesn't show those with the building department and the building permit plans. So I apologize for them not having it. I mean, I do have it on email. I don't know if there's a way to send them to you and you have a look at them, but I can do that if that's completely necessary, or just leave it up to staff at the time a building permit is applied, assuming this project moves forward. And lastly, I had been told there was a waiver necessary from Article 25. And when I read it initially, it felt like there wasn't one, because I went through all the performance standards. We meet the 30%. but I misunderstood the section that was discussed tonight. I believe it's section 7A and C. And it talked about critical erosion areas and where there was greater than 2 feet of erosion per year. And I looked at some maps, and I'm like, this area is not adjacent to it, but after discussion and hearing tonight, you know, obviously, we're in a floodplain, and it would require a waiver, because the whole entire property is in a flood zone, so there's no way to move completely out of it. But we can move up and get the structure out of it in floodplain compliant, where obviously the existing structure is not compliant. And, you know, a very small portion of the structure, existing structure, just the corner appears to just about touch that coastal A zone, where that's the break between 1.5 foot high wave heights. So everything landward of that, or seaward of that, would be, you know, up to 3 feet, where, you know, where the velocity zone starts out closer to the salt marsh. Everything inland of that would be the under 1.5 foot wave heights. And there was definitely mention under Article 25 that, you know, I think the initial description mentions wave heights, significant wave heights of 2 to 3 feet in the regs. So I said, you know, based on my initial interpretation, I was like, I don't believe we meet that, but if that's how the commission interprets the bylaw, I fully understand that. And, obviously, it would be one request that we would need to add or ask for regarding, you know, working in a flood zone. I think that basically covers everything that's on the revised plan. I believe we're pretty much have a pretty decent improvement to the area, because, you know, right now there's no naturally vegetated buffer zone, minus a little small pocket on the northern property line. We're going to greatly increase that, and you know, compared to the amount of trees that were coming down, we pretty much have the same. We're providing 42 trees, and we're taking down 32 trees. So if the commission has any new questions on this revised plan, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me go out to commissioners first for questions or comments on the revisions that are before you from the last meeting, and we'll go from there. Who would like to start?
I'm all set.
You're all set? Okay.
I have some questions.
All right, Sarah?
Yes,
floor
good
is yours.
evening. And apologies, I watched the hearing. I wasn't here in real time, so forgive me if I missed this, but I just wanted to ask, I didn't see it anywhere in the plan. What is the compelling need to rebuild the house?
Excuse me?
What's the compelling need to rebuild the house?
It's a pretty small house as it is now, and doing any improvements is going to far exceed the value of, you know, when you're working with repairing structures in the flood zone, you're only allowed to have a certain value
Sure, I'm
that you
familiar. Yeah.
can do to a project before you would have to actually make the house floodplain compliant. So the amount of work anticipated would just obviously exceed, and it's just not worth financially to try to, you know, remodel the existing house. So
I see.
that's-
And doubling the size, is there a compelling need for that?
It's, you know, it's just that what the applicant wants. I mean, we're far under lot coverage requirements. We're not, you know, exceeding anywhere. I think we're maybe even half of what's allowed.
Sure.
On the size of this property.
Well, that was a question too, maybe for the commissioners. With the square footage of the lot, if I'm correct here on the plan, it's 34 and change, 35,000? Is this, do we need a variance for a 4-bedroom house? And I saw the septic is proposed for 5 bedrooms. So I've got just a couple questions, concerns about that. Forgive me again if that was already covered, but I'd love to hear from the staff or commissioners as to what
For our purposes in conservation, there's no variance or anything of that nature for it. It can definitely be taken into consideration for concerns and whatnot, but for regulation and policy-wise, we don't have anything in conservation for that. That would be Board of Health.
And that's where we intersect with flow neutral and
That's where we what?
intersect with flow neutral.
I was going to comment on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, would you like
Okay.
me to do that now? And again, I was not here, but I did watch the video, so I guess it's just as good. I know when Commissioner Pitt asked about the septic tank itself, you said that the plan of record that you had at that last meeting showed the house as a 4-bedroom home, although the septic system is a 5-bedroom ask. So it wasn't addressed at all in the meeting about where
Yeah,
is.
it was sizing it for one additional bedroom, correct?
Right. So, as you know, it's not our purview, but under Chapter 108, you have to get a variance from the Board of Health for that 5th bedroom because the lot is smaller than 40,000 square feet. My concern is this. I looked at your nitrogen calculation figures, which, quite honestly, I'm having a little bit of a hard time with because it starts off with the existing conditions and it says it's a 4-bedroom home. And the assessor's tie card says it's a 2-bedroom home. So I don't understand why the existing conditions, you know, it came down to 6.91 parts per million. That's not an IA system that's in there now, correct?
It is right now.
It is?
Yes.
Because I was wondering how it got that low.
Yeah.
And it's only a 2-bedroom.
Correct. You know, I believe the field card says 4 rooms, 2 bedrooms.
Right.
So
It says 4 rooms, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, 1 unit.
so I saw the 4, and I
What do I
think
have?
that was where it
So
was
you
at.
went with that?
Yeah, just either a mistake obviously a mistake on my part, but
Okay.
ultimately, at the end, we were only at 6.91, I believe, with the 5-bedroom design.
Right.
I forget the exact number. No, 6.17, I'm sorry.
Okay. So let me also bring up the, and I understand that the existing and the proposed conditions are going to change, obviously, but you're factoring in nitrogen sources from the roof and the pavement and the lawn and whatnot. And your proposed conditions for the lawn area were 14,379 square feet, and I'm assuming that's changed because Regulation 31 only allows 10% lawn area, which would bring you down to 3,000 square feet. So where are we right now with the proposed square footage of lawn? I know you started off talking about seeding here and there.
Yeah, so it's basically that same number, because originally the site was we had a lot of grass on that site. And those numbers that were presented on that plan took into account all the grassed area that was not going to be touched between the house and the mitigation area. So now that mitigation area, which was actually the grass area that was on the water side of the erosion control, is now
Mitigation area.
mitigation area. That grass is removed.
Okay.
Basically was relocated to the front of the structure so that he wouldn't have to, he'd have the same amount of grass area, assuming that he wanted more, I guess, usable area out in front of the property versus, you know, mitigation or replanting area. If you feel we need to add more plantings in the front and reduce that grass in the front, I'm sure that the applicant would be fine with that. But it was an even trade-off. So we basically, this was all anticipated to be woods at the front, mitigation closest to the water, and then the rest of the area was grass. So what I ended up doing was just did a swap. It wasn't planned, obviously. It was something that took place unbeknownst to me. And obviously, we've requested a continuance 2 weeks ago so that I could address that. So I just said, let's just do an even swap.
So in the end, you can't have more than 10% of the lot covered in lawn, because you'd be in violation of Regulation 31. It clearly states that at the end of the project, you have a 10% window. That, I believe, is Regulation 31 under Part 2 Design Specifications. The area of the lawn to be installed or renovated shall not exceed 10% of the area of the lot, subject to jurisdiction under 172. So all of that grass that's been rob Peter to pay Paul to the front, you're still going to be over. You're going to be over that 10%.
Exact, but the lot itself is already, this is about 19,000 square feet of lawn area now.
Right.
So it's already lawn, we're shrinking it down, obviously, just because, the house is bigger, so the house, for the most part, is being constructed in the lawn area and in the footprint of the structure, so ultimately, yes, the grass area is gonna considerably decrease by, 25% roughly, to get down to, where it's at on this plan.
Yep.
And that basically is pushing it from closest to the salt marsh out to the street.
All right. I'm going to go back to that extra planned bedroom, that fifth bedroom. And so wherever you go, to the Board of Health, whatever they do, that's their business. It's not ours. But what is conservation business is Regulation 30, the nitrogen loading standards that we have. And I'm sure you went through those, and you're clearly underneath the window by a long shot. It's 19 parts per million.
Understood.
However, also in Regulation 30, under Regulation 30C, the commission can, under its own discretion, reduce that 19, all the way down to 5 if they see fit. And if they wanted to go to 5, you would have too much nitrogen. Now, what I would bring to the attention of the board is back on June 5th from 2025, the Mashpee Enterprise ran an article on Wacoya Bay. I mean, basically, they were pulling boats out of the water because the algal mats were so thick, the boats wouldn't run. The bay is out of control. So my own personal opinion is I would reduce that down to 5. We have an emergency situation. We have water quality in the town of Mashpee that's off the charts completely. And this is on a river that is a direct feed into Wacoya Bay, not to mention what's going into the groundwater. That extra 110 gallons, if you run it through your nitrogen calculation figures, that translates to 7,910.65 milligrams of nitrogen per day, that one extra bedroom. And I know when you do your calculations, you base those on the actual and then the average. And the actual is 2 people per bedroom, so that would be for 10 people. But according to what you have here, the unit average is the occupancy within the town, 2.5 people. And I've seen this with many of the proposals that come before us. And it's an easy way to get it down to where it should be. But on a situation, on a beautiful summer day, if you've got 5 bedrooms, I got to believe there's more than 2.5 people that are going to be in that building using that system. So my concern is, even though it's a great system, it's down there, 6.17, I look at Wacoya Bay, I wouldn't even put my boat in it. It's that bad. So I have a very difficult time okaying a 5th bedroom. It's not the purview to review it, but it is the Conservation Commission's purview under a cumulative adverse effect to the water. And we're talking, again, I ran these calculations through, 110 gallons is 416.35 liters, and at your rate of 19 milligrams per liter coming out of the system, that's 7,910 extra milligrams of nitrogen every day going into the groundwater. And you're at 6.3 feet with the bottom of your diffusers, and the groundwater elevation is 0.3 at high tide today. As sea level rise comes up, so does the groundwater. So I have some very serious concerns in supporting a proposal that says, oh, we're only going to put 4 bedrooms in the house, but, you know, we're planning for a 5th bedroom down the road, and then we approve that, where does the commission come in to be able to defend the resource area in the future? We had a job like this several months back, and I felt the same way about it, and I said, no, I'm not supporting that. And I can't support this, not a 5-bedroom. And I'm not usurping my purview. I'm looking, again, Regulation 24, cumulative effect. There's a cumulative effect here. You've got an extra 7,910 milligrams of nitrogen going into that groundwater.
Well, that's obviously, if you read the Title V, the Cape Cod Commission method, it's standard method for nitrogen. It's basically taking the average between the two.
Oh, I get it. I know. You don't have to explain.
There's not going to be 10
it.
people in this household living here. That's it's uncommon to see 2 people per bedroom on this size. And yes, there may be more than 2.5 people per, because it's, you know, a bigger home, you know, 4-bedroom home.
Sure.
So you take the average to it. So it's not like, hey, you're anticipating 10 people. It takes the average between the two, and this is the average occupancy rate. You know, this is standard. This is this is used throughout the Cape. So I'm not changing what they're saying. What's been, you know, documented. So,
Okay.
Septic system itself, we do provide 6 feet of separation. We have an extra foot of separation. It's not 5 feet.
I believe,
It's 6 feet. So,
which at less than 2 minutes an inch is still, I calculated that out too, 144 minutes from the bottom of the diffuser to going into the groundwater. So if you have 6 feet, that's what it takes, 144 minutes. And that effluent, which is not potable, it's got nitrogen in it, is in the groundwater.
yeah, so it is obviously treated, and it's 2 minutes per inch perk rate. It's not what happens when the biomat forms. It slows down and it is treated.
In medium sand, I looked at your third horizon that you did provide now for this revised hearing, and you're well down into that third zone.
Correct. And
Medium sand zone, 2.5 wide, 6'3".
So this meets Title V requirement, and under the State Wetlands Act, if it meets Title V, it's presumed to meet.
I'm not arguing that it meets Title V requirements. What I'm arguing is it doesn't meet the cumulative adverse effect, that extra bedroom. I look at Regulation 30, and this commission could say, knock it down to 5. We have a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for us to look at a regulation that says, hey, here's the 19 parts per million you need to meet, and then you come here and say, oh, no, we're not going to follow our own regulations that says 19 parts per million.
It is our regulation. It's Regulation 30C.
Yeah. It says 19 parts per million, correct,
Oh, it
right?
does. I'll read it for you, because I want the commission to hear this as well. Some receiving coastal water bodies are likely to suffer unacceptable effects from pollution at a level of less than 19 milligrams per liter of nitrogen. Upon a finding that a particular water body, wholly or partly within any area of jurisdiction, possesses characteristics that make it likely to suffer unacceptable adverse effects to wildlife habitat, fisheries, and/or shellfish from levels of less than 19 milligrams per liter, the commission may set a reduced standard range of 5 to 18 milligrams per liter for nitrogen loads emanating from alterations, as described above, occurring on a lot within any area of jurisdiction. Said standards shall be that deemed necessary to protect the interests of Chapter 172 and the performance standards as expressed in this regulation. So the commission clearly, under the Regulation 30, and I was on the subcommittee that wrote that regulation. We brought that before this commission a year and a half, 2 years ago. And we were concerned in writing that regulation that, you know, we got some areas, 19's not going to cut it. That's what the state was using, and we wanted to have it even stricter than that. And we said, but some areas, 19 does cut it. Well, Monomoskoye Road, 19 doesn't cut it. Because you have 6 feet. You're one of the fortunate ones. I've seen them down there with a lot less. And so I'm not on board with that 5th bedroom at all. And I stand clearly on the regulatory authority of the Conservation Commission, because I see it in Chapter 172, Purpose Bylaw. I see it in the burden of proof in 172 bylaw. I see it in Regulation 24 under acceptable, unacceptable, significant cumulative effects, and I see it in Regulation 30. So I can't support your project, not at 5 bedrooms.
So would 4 bedrooms be, we fine with just designing for the 4
You've
bedrooms?
got 4 by right, I can't argue that. But in order to get that 5th bedroom, you got 2 hurdles. Board of Health, they have to give the variance.
I've
You've
already.
got to get by our regulations as well. And I don't see how you can get by that.
I mean,
just don't see it.
if that's what the commission feels, then, you know.
Well, I'm
I'll
only
take-
speaking for myself. I said that earlier. This is my view and my opinion, but I wanted commissioners to hear that. And this isn't the first one. We've had them before. I remember at one point, I think it was Neil that said, well, maybe they'll never put the 5th bedroom in. It doesn't matter. If you permit it, they have it. They can do what they want. So I'm not on board with it because of that 5th bedroom. Anything else?
So where do we stand now?
I'm just looking for other questions and comments. I'll go out to the public, I'll listen to what the agents have to say, and I'll take a motion.
I have a just follow-up comment, Paul, if I may, and I agree 1,000%, you know, the cumulative impact of taking these smaller homes and doubling plus their size on the water with all of what we're seeing in terms of our current regulations and projections, and then looking around, especially this time of year, it becomes very evident and easy to see that this is an environmental crisis that we're facing in terms of water quality due to the overdevelopment of the waterfront. So these regulations are in place to help us prevent these cumulative impacts. I agree wholeheartedly. And I would also just like to put forward that I do see opportunities in this project to reduce the scope. I'm looking at the lot coverage tables, I'm looking at the project. I understand that moving the structure completely out of the buffer zone to the salt marsh would disturb a lot of native vegetation. I'm not suggesting that yet, but I wonder if the applicants would be open to any amendments to the project. So instead of a garage with a slab, could we have a carport with crushed gravel that would increase infiltration and reduce impervious surfaces? Or is the plunge pool really necessary? Could that just be a deck with permeable pavers that would reduce the scope and the impact overall of this property on the water next to the salt marsh? So those would be my questions and comments.
Okay. Anything else? No? Dan, would you like to add anything?
No, I don't have anything to add to this. The revisions that were made do make the project better from what it was in the past. I understand the commission's point of view when it comes to Regulation 30, as well as Regulation 24. So it's just up to commissioner deliberation from here.
I mean, if the commission wants it down to 4 bedroom, then, you know, so be it. That's gonna have to be the way it is, and we'll just obviously, you know, remove a chamber so that it's not, you know, classified as a 5-bedroom,
Well,
5-bedroom
we'll
system.
find out when we get a motion for the project, and under the deliberations of that motion, we'll find out how they feel. I know how
I
I...
do, sorry, I'm back on, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, Drew.
Okay. I just wanted to offer up comment that the commission does have the authority, as I'm sure you know, to restrict the property to 4 bedrooms if that's what you're looking to do. So you do have that authority, and I do recall that condition in many past orders of conditions when it comes to numbers of bedrooms in a house. The only comment that I have is that, you know, I do agree that the project probably could be reduced in scope and overall footprint, but also keep in mind that the existing conditions on this lot, there is really virtually no naturally vegetated buffer strip. And so the way you get that exchange to have a buffer, which the one they proposed is pretty robust and contains a lot of really beneficial native plantings, that's the exchange for allowing a larger size footprint. So when the footprint gets reduced, the mitigation goes down based on the chart. It's your discretion. I'm just pointing that out as what I consider to be a significant benefit on this lot, because right now you have grass going right up to the wetland edge. So that in that exchange for a larger footprint home, which could be reduced somewhat, you do get that benefit of establishing a naturally vegetated buffer strip between the home and the wetland. So,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
So the time to talk about,
Questions from the public first? Nothing? Okay.
oh, I'm just
So-
warning, it'll come after we have a motion. The motion's on the floor.
Yep.
We can do
Then we'll deliberate and go from there.
that. Okay.
So I'd accept the motion.
I'll make a motion for close an issue for 389 Monomoskoye Road with the following conditions: that the lawn area be reduced to meet Regulation 31, that is 10%, I think you mentioned, Paul?
Yes, 10.
Okay, that the house is limited to a 4-bedroom with a 4-bedroom septic system. That a written waiver be provided. I think we need that waiver. And then a 3-year mitigation contract with a licensed horticulturist or provider for lawn and mitigation areas. I think I got all 4
Regulation
issues.
25. So we got 10% lawn, 4 bedrooms, Reg 25. What was the other one? Contract for mitigation?
Yep. Mitigation,
years?
a 3-year contract.
Okay.
And the waiver, right? Waiver for
Got that.
25, you
Yeah.
got that? Yeah, so there's four conditions there. Yeah, the mitigation between, the house, I know the house is getting larger, but the mitigation, like Drew said, is robust. So, much better. And then all the changes that the applicant made from the last hearing are implemented, so
Okay.
that's a reason for the closing issue, yeah.
All right. So is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. Motion made and seconded, and now up for discussion, deliberation.
What did you just say? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
We now have the motion on the
We now have
floor.
the motion.
So,
I just wanted to underscore that as a commission, and those commissions that preceded us, I think we've struggled with the issue of purview, and in the past have been encouraged by some commissioners as well as members of the public to shy away from the number of bedrooms because it's considered to be a Board of Health issue, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the comments that were made here tonight are completely and 100% consistent with not just the Conservation Commission's goals, but indeed what we're here to do, which is to set standards. And that bedroom standard for both septic and I think just to be there for the future, to look back on, is exceedingly important. So I'm very happy with the conditions so far, and I certainly hope that the applicants understand that it's, looking forward 5 years, this might not happen. 5 years from now, it might just be, you're not gonna get any, just because the water quality is so poor all over Mashpee.
Yeah.
So that's my comment. That's how I feel.
anything else? Nothing? Okay. One of the things that, and it's the first time I've seen this, we've had as part of the package the point precipitation frequency estimates from the NOAA Atlas 14, and the applicant chose that the 10-year storm frequency at 4.98 inches. Although it doesn't apply to this project, the revised 25 is not just looking at this, it does, but it's also looking at coastal zone management information from Woods Hole, and it's a lot higher than this. So I have my doubts, even at 4.98, I'm sure it scales out, but it all fits. I think in the future, that's not going to work. And I did submit my comments to the agents, and I believe they were forwarded to you, about the drain areas that Commissioner Godfrey asked in the floor area of the foundation of this building. We required those in a project not too far down the road from that same location. And we were adamant that those floor drains needed to be in there, because when those flood vents, wherever they are, they're on your phone or in your email, but when they're accepting the water, all that's gonna go out of there is what's at the height of those flood vents. And then somebody's gonna be pumping the rest of that water out. And who knows where it's gonna go and how it's gonna erode into the soils. So I'm a little disappointed that there's not some cutouts in the slab of the foundation of this home to provide for that extra drainage. There's drainage all around it.
Yeah, we can add that as a condition.
4.98, we can amend the motion if you'd
Motion,
like.
yep.
But at 4.98, that's gonna take what's on the roof, but where's all the water that gets into this basement going? It's not gonna sit there, because then they'll have a mold and mildew problem they'll never get around. So that, to me, is a major flaw in what's been presented, but, I mentioned the waiver in my concerns that I submitted, and that waiver never came through. In fact, it said in the revised narrative that there was no need for any waiver for 25, based on what the commissioners had to say at the June 12th hearing. But, I mean, there is a need for it. We have a setback issue until we have a new Reg 25. So I'm going to have a hard time supporting this thing based on some
Even
of
with
that.
the commission, even with the
Well,
conditions.
the waiver's there.
I'd like to see it amended to
Commissioner-
include the drains and the slab.
I'm sorry, Sandy, were you talking?
I said I would like to see the conditions amended to include the cutouts in the slab.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Okay.
I could go along with that.
I'll amend my condition to add
So you want-
condition number 5 for 36, minimum of 4 36-inch by 36-inch openings in the slab with stone for drainage.
If I could just make a quick comment, do you want to, discuss that with the applicant's consultant to see if that's something they're amenable to? I understand you're making it a condition, but I think getting their feedback would be a good idea.
Yeah, okay. What do you think?
I'll allow that in. Go ahead.
I understand where you're coming from, but this is a flooding situation where water would have to get up to that point to get into it. I'm not saying it's not gonna happen. Obviously it's gonna happen, but it's not an everyday storm event. This water, typical rainstorm, water flows away from the foundation. So this is just
Agreed.
into the foundation from the flood vents. And again, the flood vents can be situated lower and close to the slab, or so that there's no, very minimal, ponding that's staying in the structure. The slab itself could be pitched in the crawl. It's just a crawl space, so it could be pitched, half north, half south, and make it to low flood vents so that there's very minimal amount of ponding in there. Again, it's not just, we're gonna have a 2-year, 10-year, or 100-year rainstorm event. I'm not talking a flooding event, I'm talking a rainstorm event. Water is running away from the house, and there's no water going into the crawl space. That's not how those are the grading works around the structure.
From our last hearing, that was one of the questions that I asked for the architectural plans, because you only have 2 sides where you have flood vents, not on 4 sides, only 2 sides.
Yeah, we have them on 3 now, so I made sure we have them on 3 sides.
Okay, well, I couldn't tell that from the plan because the grade is being built up on.
Yeah, we
the
have
side.
enough space on the patio side to put flood vents in, so.
On the patio side?
Yeah, the water side.
So.
There's
But
2
the
feet.
elevation's 9 there, and then you have 7 on the north and 7 on the south where flood vents are, with the existing grade is 7.
Yeah.
So where would the flood vents be?
Procedurally, respectfully, we have a motion made,
Right.
and it's supposed to be a discussion between commissioners, so we can take a vote and move on. This has been really long, and this is the second time we're seeing it. If it doesn't meet what people want, vote no. If you think it's conditioned appropriately, vote yes. Let's, please,
Okay.
respectfully, move on.
I could accept that.
Okay, so I amended the motion
you've
for the
amended your
flood vents.
motion.
As amended,
36 by 36, 4 of them. And you're seconding that amendment?
I'm sorry?
Did you second that?
I did.
Okay.
Commissioner Cook, would you read the list of conditions just one more time, please?
Reduce the lawn area to meet Regulation 31, which is 10% of the lot area. Maximum 4-bedroom septic system. A written waiver for Regulation 25C7. A 3-year mitigation contract with a licensed horticulturist or landscape firm. And then the 4 cutouts in the slab to help infiltration of water during a flooding event.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? So I'm going to call for 2 separate votes. I'm going to call first on the amended condition. That's what we're voting on first. And then if that passes, then we'll go a second vote for the motion that has been amended, which would be to issue the order of conditions. Is everybody aware of that? All right. So on the amended vote, Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Yes.
Sandy? Alex?
I abstain.
Oh, that's right. You didn't turn in the form. Okay. And I will vote yes on that amended motion. Okay, so that passes. So that's now
Now
the
motion on
condition that there would be 4 36 by 36 cutouts in that foundation, that slab, to allow water to permeate down into the soil that happens to get into those flood vents. Okay. Now I'm going to call the vote for the project itself based on the conditions that have been listed, which is the lawn area to meet regulations 31, a 4-bedroom home, which sizes down the chambers. I believe the applicant said they would pull in 1 chamber out.
Yeah, at least one.
At least 1. The submission of the request for waiver on Regulation 25, the 3-year mitigation contract, and again, those, the amended order for the drains. Okay, so that's what I'm calling the vote on. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And you're not voting, and I'm going to vote no based on the fact that I would want to have read that waiver to see if there was a compelling need, but the motion carries. So that's that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Our next order of business is a request for a certificate of compliance from 39 Kim Path, Richard and Amy Bellew, Jr. and McDonald/Bellew. Request for certificate of compliance for order of conditions 433198. The representative on that project was BSS Design. The DEP file number was 433198. And the agents have commented that it has passed inspection. So, with that, I would accept a motion.
So moved.
Steve, is there a second?
Second.
Marjorie, motion is made and seconded to issue that certificate based on the agent's comments. Any discussion, deliberation?
Just one comment or question. I know very recently we had sent out the compliance report and the as-built plans for the commissioners to review.
Right.
And I didn't get that this time. It's possible that I missed it, but I just wanted to make sure that that was still a reasonable expectation before these come up on the docket.
Yes, I believe during that conversation, we said on small projects, like an addition of a porch or something like that, there's no need for it.
Defer to
But
the
on
staff.
a complete rebuild of one kind or another,
Okay.
it would be. And I believe this was a raise and replace,
This was a
wasn't it?
raise and replace. That slipped my mind.
Okay,
That's
fair
for
enough.
certain. I will say that.
Fair enough.
Let me make a note for that for next time.
There's an honest man.
But it's been reviewed by the
So,
agents and.
Modesty's my
it's
gift,
passed
so.
inspection. It doesn't.
Yeah, on the plan for the COC request, it is a side-by-side depiction of existing conditions and the final work.
Okay.
So both are on that plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Just checking.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay. Anything else? All right, then I will call for a vote. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Alex?
Yeah.
Oh, and I skipped over Rich, sorry. Rich?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that passes, and that takes care of our hearings. I'm going to move back up to the draft minutes. We have a set of minutes from March 20th, 2025, a regular minute meeting. And eligible to vote on those would be myself, Steve, Sandy, Marjorie, Sarah, Rich, Shauna, and Neil. We've got a lot of people to choose from. Have you looked at those minutes? Do you feel comfortable with everything that's there?
Yep.
Sandy has a question. Go ahead.
Under 45 Manitoba, the paragraph with, regarding the tree bylaw, it said Mashpee should replace Manchester, I think. Came out as Manchester bylaw.
Oh.
Spell check must have caught that one, huh?
Yeah.
How about the spell
And-
check in my brain didn't get?
And the COC for 6 Jehu Pond Road, the motion is missing. And the deny was, Steve made the motion and I seconded it. That's what it was missing.
Okay.
And the vote is missing also.
What is it?
And the vote is missing also.
And I'm Pitt, not Pitts.
Say that again?
You're what?
I'm Pitt, not Pitts.
Oh. No S on the end?
No S. S Pitts, Pitt.
It's all right. we can-
Two T's.
Those are easy edits to make. Is that it, Sandy?
Yes.
Anything else from those that read it? Okay, so I'll accept a motion for these minutes with the addendums, the edits being
So
made.
moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Let me take a vote here. Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well, so we don't have to go any further. The next set of minutes is March 20th, 2025. This is the executive session meeting minutes, and eligible to vote, attending that executive session were Paul, Steve, Sandra, Marjorie, Rich, Shauna, and Neil. How are we with those minutes? Did you had a chance to look at those too, I'm sure. Sandy says they're good, then there's no typos, there's no S on the end of your name, and we should be good. Okay? Is there a motion to accept those?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Second?
Yes.
Thank you, Marjorie. Any discussion? None? Let me go right around the table. I'll get everybody on this one, because everybody's eligible, I believe. Yep. Steve?
Yes.
Shauna?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, those are in and done. Water quality issues is next. I'm sure you have heard or maybe have seen the pictures from Mashpee Wakeby. It's green again, as green can be. So we've got another serious cyanobacteria outbreak there. It's been documented by APCC and signs are up, so stay out of the water. Hopefully it'll pass very quickly. It's that time of year, the heat comes up, the fertilizers are running in the water, and septic systems are not being kind, and we have a problem. I'm going to take the discussion on the New England mountain bike, because I know they've been patiently waiting, so let me get that before we get into Reg 25.
Thank you so much for waiting.
Sorry, it's been...
Sorry, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And your name, please, for the record.
My name is Lev Malakoff. I am Vice President of the Cape Cod chapter of the New England Mountain Bike Association, also known as NEMBA. And we want to thank the Commission for our previous experiences here and working on trails on both sides of the Mashpee River Woodlands area. We are a service organization as well as recreation. We like to contribute to the communities that we're involved in. We have over 250 local members and an organization of over 10,000. We have over 2,000 friends on our Facebook page that are also involved in our activities. And when we have been enjoying the wonderful trails along the Mashpee River Woodland area, we notice, just the great vistas that you see and views of the river as you're in the evening, perhaps, sunlight coming over the water and the swans. And it seemed like that's just a wonderful area and the spot that's shown here on the map in particular. If Dan, maybe you could scroll up a page to the view. I took a picture there last month looking out over the water. I'm sorry, I'm not a great photographer with the sunlight dappling on the water.
That's lovely.
I was trying to imagine, hope you can imagine that if you haven't been out there in the evening. It's wonderful. So we have had experience as a club in creating projects in other towns to create destinations. So we have some examples here. Here's one in Barnstable, in the West Barnstable Conservation Area, built in 1999, looking out at a great distance to North Falmouth and points to the southwest. And then further down, the next picture is a more recent addition, and what it's called Sam Nye's Mountain, which is great to have a mountain for mountain biking, but also hikers really love coming up to this viewpoint. The view from this deck can show you all the way to the Pilgrim Monument in Provincetown. So we think Mashpee is also a deserving community. At the bottom, we have a group photo from an event we had earlier in May. Wide variety of folks out there, and I do have with me a couple very patient members of our club, Chris Young and his wife, Kaja. Chris is one of our adaptive mountain bikers. He's on a three-wheeler, but he does an amazing job getting through the trails. And if we scroll back up a little bit, you can see that the decks that we've built in the past, they all have steps, and we just weren't really thinking forward at the time of constructing those, but steps are a little bit more complicated to build, but they're also a barrier to access for some of the folks using the trails. So the proposal that I'm going to talk about today is to create a very similar design as you see here, with a bench on either side, about a 14 by 14 foot square footprint, but it would have a ramp access instead of steps. It's going to be a little easier to build, and it'll also make it a little easier for folks of whatever ability just to gain access to the view. So the site, if we go back to the map, the construction of the deck would basically involve us bringing a vehicle down, I guess it's Spinnaker Road, that path there. It used to be, I guess, a Jeep road in the old days. That would just need to be trimmed a little bit so that we could deliver materials to the Long River Trail access point there, and then it would be hand carried or possibly a wheelbarrow just to bring the materials the last couple hundred feet to the work site. We wouldn't be needing to do any excavation, because we've learned about something called diamond piers, which are an easy and effective way to support a structure. It'd be pressure-treated wood, so it'll be durable. We have insurance policy that covers this as part of our trail enhancement activities. And I think what we're really looking to do is to create a destination for folks that are out walking, hiking, running, to have a reason to come out and visit this wonderful area. We really feel it's important to get what I term as responsible public use, which is passive recreation, non-motorized users out into natural areas as eyes on the properties, discouraging the motorcycles and other types of activities. Those people don't really want to be seen or observed, so I think when we have folks that this will attract will help with that activity as well. I don't know, Chris, would you like to say one thing since you've been here for 2 hours, or just to give you a perspective that you don't often hear from?
Make it worth your time.
Everything's always worth my time.
My name's Chris Young, and I am a resident here in Barnstable County, and an adaptive mountain biker for, 1996, when the only way to get around was to use a chairlift at a ski area to get to the top, and then we had gravity-assisted bikes. Today mountain bikes, I'm able to ride with the club on the outings and keep up with my bike and the responsibly curated trails that the Cape Cod chapter of NEMBA takes care of. Here on the Cape, I believe there's more than 1,000 miles of trails. I'm on a goal to
That's
ride
pretty
every
cool.
single one of
Yeah.
them. And these trails are going to allow accessible use of the outdoors and the inclusion of a ramp in this structure. Like you've seen, I've been to both of those other structures, and it was nice to go out there and everybody got off their bikes and walked up and had a look around. And I sat back behind this tree and looked over the top of the benches and thought, wow, yeah, nice view. The addition of a ramp will make it possible for myself and everybody else. There will be no limitations to use to see this new view and this new location. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Really appreciate your brevity.
So I guess I would entertain, the proposal, I believe, has been provided to the members, and I'd be happy to embellish or answer any questions you might have or concerns.
Okay. Steve, any questions?
No, I just look at staff's recommendation saying that we're going to need a notice of intent filing, so
Yeah,
just
it's
need
a
plans
structure,
and, details, construction details and site plans, how many trees you're cutting, so forth and so on. So,
Certainly, I can tell you there would be no tree cutting. There might be brushwork just to create the area. The site was specifically chosen to avoid the need for any tree cutting. As all of our trail work, we try to go around trees because we like them.
yeah, what size truck were you talking about coming down that Spinnaker
It'd
Trail?
be like a small pickup, just not something to carry the materials in the back and drop them off.
Yeah, we'd probably have to check out the trail and see, okay, how wide is it,
I'm looking
what
at
needs
it
to
on
be
the-
removed and so forth, too, so.
Yeah, I think it's only brushwork. There wouldn't need to be any trees. I mean, we took the site view with Dan, and I know if you have something you can.
Yeah, the on the trail itself, it's already about 3 feet wide. They can be 4 feet wide. It would just be brushwork. It would just be cutting back of bur oaks and blueberry bushes. That would be it for the.
Yeah, but you're gonna try to get a 6 or 7 foot wide pickup truck down there?
It would have to be cut back a little more than 4 feet initially, obviously, yeah.
Right.
It would be, absolutely. But there is no tree removal on the trail to get down to there. And there would be no tree removal in the platform area that they're proposing either. It's all just blueberry bushes is right there.
Yeah, I could see having one of those small, little 4x4 utility
Yeah.
things going down there, but not a pickup truck.
Could this be done under, I don't know, either like just an administrative review? Does it need to be an NOI? How do you do an NOI on someone else's land?
Well, it's a structure, so you have to have a building permit, and it's on conservation lands. I don't know how close it is to the Mashpee River, but there's got to be an inland bank of some kind here. There's a little bit of an AE floodplain on both sides of the river, but I don't know the exact location. It looks from the picture as though it's fairly close to the river.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the Long River Trail, and you that may have walked out there, there is a existing trail, side loop that goes very near the river that Dan and we have discussed. Well, actually, that trail will be closed because there'll be no need for it. The access to the deck would be from the upper area, closer to the Long River Trail. So this is adjacent to the Long River Trail.
The little pine trails.
But, we of course depend on
Salt marsh.
the staff's guidance of any of those
Then
particular.
we'll want it staked out, too, to stay exactly where it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the best. The agents are mentioning that it should be an NOI filing. It should at least be staked out so that we could do a site visit and know exactly the location where that's going to be. Look at what kind of resources are there. There's no tree clearing, we get that, but who knows what vegetation is in that understory that we would like to take a look at, just to make sure we're good. That's all I can see right now.
I just know, like, from maintaining land and building things on land, bog bridges, all sorts of things, it's not the easiest to like stake out this is exactly where it's gonna go, because like during construction, you like kind of figure out how you're building it and how it's gonna go.
Right.
So like, this is a group trying to do a good thing,
Yep.
donating time and money. Like, I don't want to make this a hard, arduous process for them. So I think we need to figure out how to work with them to have this happen. I mean,
Right.
And we're expanding access. I would agree. We're expanding equitable access to the conservation lands here in Mashpee, which is incredibly important.
Yep.
I would be concerned about seasonality, maybe habitat disruption, and then how we're anchoring the pilings. And then, so maybe we could just find a way to have the staff involved to make sure that the conservation interests are maintained throughout construction, and there's advice, maybe a gator or something could be used instead of a pickup truck, all decisions that we don't have to make. But I did have a question. I see that your insurance in the narrative, and thank you for wanting to do this, by the way, this is really cool. It covers liability during the construction, but my question would be the maintenance of the structure, and then liability in the case the structure might fail or somebody might get injured due to failure of the structure. I've been here for 5 years, and even things with pressure-treated wood rot here so fast because it's hot and humid and salty and all the things that we love. So I would just want to know what the plan is to maintain it.
Yeah, certainly, we do have, an active interest in keeping these sites in good repair. So the Walker deck in West Barnstable, which was installed in 1999, there have been periodic visits, as things start to, age. As far as the design and construction, it would be the building inspector would be a part of that process, and obviously we would be building it with people that have that expertise.
My thought is that we should follow a process here, and in the past, when Lev has come before us to cut out some of the trails, we've had site visits. In fact, the last one we did, there were multiple site visits. So as a bare minimum, I'd like to see a site visit and be able to look at exactly where this is going. Answer Steve's concerns about how wide is the path to get down in there, what are we looking at for understory vegetation, seasonality speaking. There's a lot of issues that I think we would need to be satisfied with before we can get to, should this be an RDA or an NOI or whatever it might be.
an administrative review.
Or administrative review.
But didn't we also, I think I know what you're talking about, didn't we also say clearly that the commission wanted to give a positive endorsement of the work that's being done by the applicant and the organization? And I've had the pleasure of going. I'm not a great biker, but I'm a great friend of great bikers, and I'm really impressed with the work that's done.
They do
the
good
quality
work.
of the upkeep.
I agree.
So I think it's important that we give that sort of public endorsement. I don't know if, I thought we did. I thought we
You
did.
just did right now.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right.
And isn't
I think
it a
it's
case of we
important.
don't want it, we just want it done right?
Right. So
I'm sorry, what did
I
you
said
say?
it's not, we don't want it, we just want it done right for
Oh, of
both,
course.
both organizations.
For the resource, right?
No, but
Right,
for,
yeah,
for all of the
for-
people that
yeah,
donate
for-
so much of their
yes,
time, yeah.
For the
They should
club
know
and
how
for
much
the-
we
yeah.
appreciate it, yeah.
So I think,
The only reason we recommended a notice is just because the resource area is riverfront, but whatever the commission is comfortable with, as long as everyone gets a good idea of what the project entails through site visit, proper oversight from staff, I'm all for, making this process as easy as possible.
Right.
I just, out of an abundance of caution, recommended unnoticed because of the resource area. But it's up to you guys as far as what you feel is, a suitable process.
Very good. I would suggest a site visit at a minimum, just so that we can see the resource areas that are applicable here, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, and I'm certainly available to, we can meet and guide you out there.
I will shoot an email tomorrow, and we will start scheduling from there. Does that sound good?
Yes.
All right. All right. I will say,
Everyone has to ride a bike.
Huh. It'll be quicker.
You get there,
I will also say from a kind of philosophical point of view, this is also like a micro step in urging and encouraging for Mashpee to be collective about their environmental consciousness, because we don't have destination points in town in our trails. We don't have areas other than the fish ladder at Santuit Pond and stuff, where you can say, hey, hike out here a mile, you're going to see a great view, and then you have a fantastic walk back. So this is kind of a micro step in
Oh, that's great.
engaging into kind of a green tourist ecosystem
Who does
here in
it well?
town.
Which town would be our guide?
Well, hopefully it could be us, but we'll see there. So,
It's a beautiful
you know.
trail.
Yeah, the trail systems here,
Sharon watched the.
yeah, the trail systems here in Mashpee River are fantastic, and I have to congratulate NEMBA for stepping up every year to help
Yeah.
maintain the trails as well. So,
Thank you.
so yeah, so I'll shoot an email out tomorrow. We'll start scheduling a site visit for the very near future, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good night.
Okay, moving on. Our next discussion item
Thank you so
is
much. You're all fantastic.
promulgation of Regulation 25,
appreciate
land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Ooh.
I did send out the final version based on,
Say Yahoo.
It is in everybody's packet.
It's here.
it's in the packet.
Yes. Make sure that's in the.
So what we did was we incorporated in the suggestions that were made at the public hearing, and those suggestions were to include in the definition listing geospatial, which Drew put in there, and both Sandy and I have looked at it and approved that. There was an addition of 150 feet on the coastal A zone that Steve had asked to be changed a little bit, and you'll see that highlighted in yellow as well. And under Performance Standard 2, all of the bulleted information has been changed over to letter references. In the event that the regulation passes and we're using it, it would be easier to cite those particular things by letter rather than no-name bullets. And I think that was it for the changes.
That's it.
So I'll open it up for discussion, and then I'll call for a vote. Because I
Can I
think,
ask a question?
yes, we're under discussion.
Because I'm going to be asked this tomorrow morning, I'm sure. Tonight's meeting and the vote on promulgation was publicized, right?
Yes, so
The paper?
the way that worked is the public comment was treated as a hearing, so we advertised it as if it was a notice of intent. And upon closing of that public comment, you don't need to advertise it anymore. So our advertisement for this aspect of it has been on the agenda, publicly posted 48 hours prior, as well as last hearing, it was on the agenda to officially set the date for tonight for promulgation.
Okay,
So-
so there should be no complaints that,
I'm not saying there won't be. I'll probably get phone calls,
I just
but,
won't be. I won't.
but no, we've already vetted that out, and as I just described, that's how it is, yeah.
I had a
Yeah,
question.
it's just a hearing for public comment that's required as part of the process under the Home Rule Authority. And once the commission, as they have for tonight, sets a date for promulgation, it doesn't need to be a separate hearing. So we are covered in that. One other comment too, for the commission's consideration is if you want to institute a grace period, which has been traditional for regulatory changes. My only input with that is, I know typically it's been 2 weeks, but I would recommend a longer grace period than that just because of the scope of jurisdiction under this regulation, just to allow more time for residents and consultants and potential applicants to absorb all the changes. But it's your discretion, just throwing it out there as a suggestion.
Good suggestion.
So I would recommend that we first entertain a motion on the regulation, and then if it passes, then we can discuss and set the timeframe for a grace period. I've looked at our schedule, and I have some thoughts on that we could open up for discussion as well. So I'd accept a motion for the final version of Regulation 25.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Alex? It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Discussion. Motion made and seconded. We're all good?
Good work on the part of the subcommittee.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent.
Arduous
Lot of
Great,
members.
great job.
Dan was there for some of it, Drew and Sandy and myself, Alex. There's been a lot of people that have worked on that. and
Very
Excellent
proud to be
work.
part of the commission.
It's come a long way. I mean,
Yeah,
it
you
was a
guys
long
did an
haul, and it
amazing
should be. It's one of the biggest ones we have. Okay, going around to vote. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that's unanimous. Okay.
I should have brought cupcake.
I looked at the schedule for hearings and deadlines and so forth. As you know, we are missing a hearing in July. So the next hearing is July 24th, and the deadline on that would be July 10th. And to me, that seems to be way too early. If we went to the next deadline, which is July 24th, that would be for the August 7th hearing, which is literally more than a month from now. So, in my viewpoint, we should make this thing effective for the filing deadline of July 24th. But that's just my view. You know, if you wanted to go sooner than that or longer than that, it's certainly up for discussion.
Our
and
meeting would be
deliberation.
August what?
The deadline for July 24th's hearings, those hearings are on August 7th.
How many?
So
No, July
now,
24th, deadline for August 7th hearing.
July 24th is the deadline for the August 7th hearing. So anything filed after July 24th would then be for the new Regulation 24, if we say it's effective on the 24th. Or you can go the 23rd and, you know, I don't know, it's up to you. The next, if you wanted to go further, the next deadline is August 7th, and that's for hearings on August 21st, which is almost 2 months from now. That's a long, it's just a way
Yeah.
too long grace period as far as.
I'm fine with July 24th, yeah, yeah.
And July 10th, that's 14 days from now, today?
Say that again?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's exactly 2 weeks, which is the standard grace period if we wanted to go for July
Chris
10th.
suggested more than that.
Yeah.
He's
I'm
saying,
fine with going
He
a
did.
month.
is
Correct.
a month, I'm gonna just play devil's advocate here, though, because there's a lot of there could be many people that have, you know, contracts in place and things like that, so this means that somebody that has hired an engineer and is going through existing standards now has to go rework all their projects and things like that.
Right.
And, adding time, money, that's that, so
Right.
to me, 30 days for, as much change has been done in this seems like a very short time. And I'll say that from a business perspective, not from necessarily from an environmental perspective.
In counter to the devil's advocate statement, this regulation, at least in draft, has been in the public's hands for over a year. We brought this to the public on our quarterly meeting in May of 2024. So it's not like people didn't know it's coming. It's changed substantially. It's become a lot more flexible, palatable, so it's gotten a little bit easier on everybody. So this isn't something that's just kind of come out of nowhere, and I'm sure there are people probably working on things because they'd like to beat the clock. But to me, a month, I think, is more than enough. I think going more than a month, I think it's counterproductive. based
That
on-
would put the date for any one resident that was interested in either talking about it, hearing, coming, sending a letter to the editor or whatever, they'd have to do that by August 20 what? When would we?
July
24th.
So we're saying roughly a month from now, this becomes effective.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And that
So
would
we
be-
don't take another vote before it becomes effective?
No,
That was
we don't.
done.
We're
That
establishing
was-
effective
that was
date
it.
today.
The
That was it?
grace period, as you call it, is the discretion of the commission.
So
There's
on
no-
the
there's no
August,
effective
on
date.
the July 24th hearing date, right? We would be saying, we'd be judging against this.
That would be the last
The last.
hearing with the
Okay.
current regulation
Like, for
25.
instance, we already
And the
had,
filing deadline for that's July
Unless
10th.
something was
Yeah.
continued, like,
Right.
all the ones we
Yeah,
continued
yeah, no,
tonight.
I
Right.
get that.
yeah, if anything is continued from tonight or anything, it is in the old standard, because it was, the hearing was open with that. If you go with the 24th date, we get applications, I got applications in today for the 24th, they would be under the older regulations. You know, so, and then
Why would that be?
they got theirs in, well, you would be initiating a grace period of July 24th, and they already got theirs in.
So it's, so so I'm just want to make sure I understand this and can explain it to somebody that asked me this. So if I were to file an application today and say I didn't want to have my hearing until the second meeting in August, I would be
So the hearing has to be open within 21 days of you submitting it.
okay.
So
It
that's
has,
how
yeah,
it
it
goes.
has to be open in 21 days. If they did that and they signed their waiver of submittal requirements, which says it doesn't have to be heard within 21 days, then in that situation, yes, if they sent it in today, tomorrow, and they said, I want to go on for the August whatever, then yeah, as long as they sign that waiver of submittal, then yes, that could be the case. We had that with the buffer zone. We had one or two cases where they applied it right before and then went out, didn't sign up for like 2 months or something to be heard. And then that point of discussion came up at the hearing because they did submit for it, so.
Yeah, it all comes down to the deadline for filing. So any applications, whatever date the commission decides, which is going to be, you know, the day after the deadline, any applications that come in after that date are going to be subject to these revisions.
Well, and in considering our purview, which is the condition of the wetland resource areas, in one commissioner's opinion, we can't make this effective soon enough. So understood that it's difficult for homeowners, and the devil doesn't need an advocate. I understand that, but the homeowners are not our purview.
So the vote tonight, if I were reporting for I wish the reporter that usually comes was here so that I could ask this question. If I were a reporter writing my story for tomorrow morning, I would say, last night the commissioner, unanimous, right?
Unanimously approved.
Support, they've been working on it for so long and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It becomes effective after a 30-day grace period, is that what we're saying?
Well, we haven't.
It's on the table. Yeah, it's enough.
Technically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Drew, technically, it's effective right now.
Right now.
What we're talking about.
Technically, yeah, technically it's effective now, but if you institute a grace period,
Right.
I would just recommend, you know, doing the same process, have a motion and a second and a
Yep.
roll call vote. I think 1 month is very reasonable. I understand the urgency behind it. You also have to consider that, you know, it's incumbent upon staff to explain to, you know, applicants coming in about the changes, and I think 1 month is very reasonable, you know, to accommodate that grace period and just make it very reasonable for everyone.
Yep.
So tonight, if we take Drew's advice, after this discussion, we make a motion to have a grace period, do a public, at least make a public statement that we voted on it unanimously after all this work, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
But we invite the public, if there's a grace period during which time the public can comment, da-da-da-da-da.
No. Grace period for filing.
Those that it would, to whom it would apply for their project?
Yep,
Yeah,
correct.
we
Yeah.
would essentially notify representation. We would notify all the firms that have been through town or that we know of.
Okay.
Of the grace period. I can
Yeah,
assure.
the comment period is over.
Yeah.
This is
Comment
just
period
enacted.
is definitely over.
I already had phone calls today from contractors asking if there was a grace period, how long, and so they've already been asking, if there is gonna be one, so.
And so you have to file by midnight on,
It would be
By noon.
by noon
12
on
noon
whatever
on
day.
the
By noon.
24th of July.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion for the grace period to move
Okay.
things along. So
Okay.
say that the grace period will end on noontime on July 24th.
Okay,
yeah, that's what we
Is there
should
a
all agree on that, so that,
Is there a
because I'm
second?
gonna get asked questions tomorrow, just like.
is there a
everybody.
second?
I'll second.
Thank
For
you,
30
Alex.
days?
So the motion is made and seconded for the grace period to run from tonight to noontime on July 24th,
I like
Okay.
that.
okay?
Okay.
Any other discussion, deliberation?
Applicants could elect to adhere to the new Regulation 25 during that grace period.
And I
correct?
believe that,
Correct.
as we meet on July 24th,
Have a
and
kennel
those
line, somebody
hearings,
would be
and
more strict.
even on August 7th, I think, we should discuss if a project comes in for Regulation 25, it's being conditioned by the old regs, but we should say, if the grace period wasn't still in effect, we would be asking for or looking at, because there's a lot of different things that are in this new regulation
Right.
that, a month goes by quick, we all know that, you pay your mortgage, and all of a sudden you gotta pay it again. So, I think we should be talking about it on different projects that are coming in, even though they're in that grace period. We're not applying it,
Okay.
but we're educating people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do the same as staff. We'll certainly, spread that word to potential applicants and consultants and do our best to make sure that everybody is well aware of these changes of the grace period and get that information out to the best of our ability.
Yep.
Good, all right, good.
Okay, so motion made and seconded, no further discussion? I will take a vote. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes, sir?
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So both votes are unanimous. Thank you.
Regulation
All right.
25.
Hold on, I gotta grab my agenda here.
In the books, as they say.
What's that?
In the books, as
When's
they
that
say.
subcommittee meeting to get on the next regulation?
Which one is this? Taking a break?
Sorry, I lost a window here.
I'll send out some dates. Hopefully we'll get Stacy's position filled soon and we'll have some more time to.
Yes, hopefully that would be.
Applicants?
Not that you guys aren't doing a terrific job.
Sorry. There it is. Okay.
Keep an eye on yours.
Moving down on the discussion list, we got the mountain bikes. Conservation Commission reorganization. So it's been a while since I became chair of this organization. I think it's 3 years ago. Chad Smith stepped down as chair. And, through one quirk of fate or another, nobody wanted to step up, or nobody was willing to step forward, and I went 2 years, and then I went 3, and I've been getting the message out to people, I need a break. So, if anybody's interested in nominating me, I refuse the nomination. Just putting that right out there right now.
I truly thank you, Paul.
But what I would like, well, thank you.
Is this the time to say what an extraordinary chair you have been?
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, it's a standard to which others will find it very, very difficult to achieve.
Well, I came to this with, and Steve is the only one sitting here with me at the table now, with people that were in this for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think
Yeah.
of Brad Sweet. I mean,
Brad Sweet.
I still see him all the time on the
Yeah.
street, and I say,
He's
Mr.
6
Mashpee,
inches shorter.
I need a question answered, I need this. So, I've worked with a lot of chairs and a lot of commissioners that have come and gone, and some of them have just been fantastic. You just hate to see them go. And I've enjoyed a lot of support from everybody here at this table, but other tables that go
Yeah.
back, and I'm truly grateful to all of you
Yeah,
for that.
you've done an excellent job.
I don't think there were any open meeting law complaints during your time.
Yes, there was.
Maybe in the
Yeah,
beginning, but
yeah, we had one that
you-
was filed on us, but
You had the rules of order down pat. You did a
it's
great
the
job.
curse of the former science teacher. You get run a classroom
But
and
but
follow
if
the
you don't
rules.
want to run again for chair, I have one request as a commissioner, that you do not stop citing bizarre chapter 13, subparagraph F,
Yeah.
you know, from 1948, you know, he knows.
It's always good to read the regs.
The first meeting I came to when he was doing it, I thought he only did it the one night that I was here. He does it all the time.
No, I try to do my homework.
Anyway,
So,
you must continue that.
here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to start with the chair. I'll take nominations for that position first, then we'll move to vice chair. We'll move to secretary. I tend to call it clerk because we have a secretary over there somewhere. And then whoever is the new chair, perhaps next week, I'll let that person deal with the committees that we have. We have environmental oversight, we have the subcommittees for bylaw review, we have the subcommittee for conservation lands, working with the tribe, we have community
CPC.
preservation, CPC, and I think that's it. I don't think we represent ourselves on any other boards, so I'll let the new chairman deal with that, because they're gonna have to deal with that as part of their workload. Okay, so I would accept nominations for the position of chairman. or
I
chair.
nominate Steve.
Sandy? Steve Cook, are you willing to accept that?
Sure. Try.
Well, there goes everybody else.
Are there any other nominations? I'm not hearing any. Okay, so let me take a roll call vote on Steve. I'll come around to you last. You can abstain if you want, or you can vote if you want. Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Congratulations, they already got a majority vote, but if you'd like to vote for yourself.
Nah.
Steve, you didn't
Very
even give a
good.
speech.
So I'm down as a yes and a congratulations.
Thank you.
You're
You
gonna
have
have
to
a
give
lot
a
of fun.
speech when you're nominated. no?
Okay.
I've been on the commission for 7 or 8 years now, whether it's associate and then full-time, so.
Yeah.
You know, I'm willing to step up and take my turn and help out with
Yeah.
everybody, with everybody's support, so.
And
Thank
I'd
you.
be more than happy to advise you along the way, whatever you need.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yep.
definitely need your advice, yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're the bomb.
All right,
Sandy
so
stole the
I'm going to
nomination.
move to nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Sarah.
Sarah Thorne. Do you accept that?
Absolutely.
Ah,
Okay.
how
So
cool.
there's one in the hopper, so to speak. Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
Yeah, I'd nominate Sandy.
Sandy, would you accept that?
I would prefer to have Sarah. I think her knowledge is more than mine on all environmental issues
So
at this
you,
point.
you're not interested in
Would
doing
you
it?
do clerk?
Yeah.
Because you're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
I think,
Will
yeah,
she
that's what I
take,
was
will she
picturing.
take what?
Clerk.
Oh, clerk. Why, aren't you clerk? Who's clerk?
Me.
No, are you clerk now?
Yeah, she's.
And you'll be
she's-
clerk again? Let's take care of Sarah first.
So you're not willing to take that?
At this time, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other nominations? All right, then let me go right on the table again and take a vote. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Do you want to vote for yourself, Sarah, or
Oh, of course, yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so it's unanimous. Congratulations.
All right. Congrats.
Then we move to clerk, or secretary, I think it's stated on the website. Nominations.
I mean, can we just keep the person we have?
You
Do you
would,
still have to
you would by
nominate
nominating that
Okay, so
person.
nominate Sandy.
Okay. Are you
Yeah.
willing to stay on as clerk?
I am.
Okay. Any other nominations?
You're good at looking at the minutes.
Other nominations for?
Rock and roll, we're gonna have a good roster.
Okay. There are no others, so let me take a vote on that. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy, you vote for yourself?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Congratulations. So we're there.
I have a
What a good
procedural
feeling.
question.
Yes.
Can I step down to associate member? Does that ever happen?
Yes, that has happened in the past. I recall Chad Smith did that when he was a candidate for select board maybe, or I forget what it was.
Yeah, he did do that. There was that
21.
precedent. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can, all you would have to do, Alex, is just submit a letter expressing your desire to become associate commissioner, and send that to, send it to us, to Dan and I, and send it to the town manager's office.
Okay.
Because I believe the select board needs to ratify that.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a change of status for commissioners.
So can I just ask, you're so good at everything, why would you want to do that? Is it time, is it too much?
It's just time. I feel like I don't love being like a full-time member when I'm not even here full-time. Like, it doesn't feel good to my, like, integrity.
Okay. Well, let me just
I mean,
take-
and we, like, have people to step up. If we
Yeah.
didn't, I would just still be.
I want to take the opportunity to say that you're such an awesome, awesome member. No, seriously, you have educated me on many, many things, and I'm sure will continue to do.
Well, and I would be happy to serve as associate and, like, be here when needed for quorum and such, but not all the time. Because I
We
do.
can still pick your brain?
Yeah, definitely. So, that'll
So-
That's better than
So if
her
you go
saying
back to
she's gone.
associates, either Shauna or Neil can come up with full.
Yeah, because I mean,
Yeah,
they're
if you'd
here
like.
every time. I like feel so guilty. Like, I'm not here, but they are. Might as well get to vote.
Oh, that opens up your seat, that's
Yeah. So.
Yeah, so any other commissioner, either of the associates, the current associates, if they wish to step up to full-time, it'd be the same procedure as when Rich went from associate to full-time. So I believe there would have to be like an interview again.
Yep.
The same exact process as before.
Makes sense.
I'd like to defer to you to step up, just for the time. If you want to, I mean, I will if you don't want to, but.
I'd be happy to become
Time
a voting
standpoint
member,
for me.
but I respect the process.
Yeah, let's not jump the gun. Let's,
Sorry, I know I'm-
we'll get Alex to the point where she needs to go, notifying people, and when it's ratified by the select board, then we can step into.
Then we do two, fill her spot then later, okay.
Yep, okay. I don't think, I don't. I have nothing else, other than the updates. I know there's a few things on there that might want to be brought to commissioners' attention. I'll turn that over to either Drew or Dan.
Postpone those?
Yeah, just real quickly, because I know it's getting late, so I'll go through these very quickly. The commission should be seeing a notice of intent forthcoming for the culvert replacement at Red Brook. Everything is in order for them to apply for a notice of intent for that, Scoresby Witten Group. Scoresby Witten Group is also working on the 50% level plans, design plans for the upper Queshnut, so that's underway. And John's Pond recently underwent additional treatment for a small amount of variable leaf milfoil that reestablished right around the boat ramp area, no big surprise. So that has been treated, that's been done, and we'll get a follow-up report with a survey on that from our consultant, Water and Wetlands. Next meeting of the Harbor Management Committee is July 9th at 5 p.m. from 5 to 6, that'll be at Town Hall. And I think those are all the highlights.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, briefly, nicely done.
So unless there's anything else pressing, I would accept a motion for adjournment.
Me.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
let
Alex.
Alex make the
Second.
Well, I
Thank
can
you,
still can.
Steve. No discussion, quick vote. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So we stand adjourned at 9:50.